And I'll say, distinguished members of Congress, our honored speakers, and also our members of Taiwan delegations, and many policy experts who are nice friends. Long time no see, actually got an opportunity to see today again. Really, really happy. And so on behalf of the constituent institutes, it's my great privilege to welcome you to our Chinese Forum and U.S.-Taiwan Security Forum 2026. And actually at the beginning we called it China Freedom, but then we think Chinese Freedom best fit. I want to explain a little bit, because so many Chinese people, even after immigrating in the United States or to other countries, their mind still being indoctrinated by the Chinese Communist ideology. We think they are still trapped in that moment, and we need the Chinese people everywhere to enjoy the freedom. So that's why this forum is called Chinese Freedom and then U.S.-Taiwan Security Forum. So we are very happy. We have friends from different parts of the world joining, and we actually very lucky to have the Taiwan delegation joining us. 7 of them fly all the way from Taiwan to join our conference today. And yesterday we also had the opportunity to visit some of the think tanks in DC to exchange some thoughts. And hopefully today's discussion will also provide additional insights for all our attendees. And today's event is also live streamed, so we hope your insights, your message will spread widely. So our Constituent Institute is an independent public policy organization based in New York. So we are dedicated to advancing freedom, human rights, democracy, resiliency, national security, and international cooperations. So through research, policy dialogue, education, partnerships, we seek to bring together leaders from the governments, academia, industry, and civil societies to address the most consequential challenges confronting our society nowadays. So today's forums take place actually at a critical moment, because cyber attacks, digital totalitarianisms, political warfare, transnational repressions, economic coercions, growing tension across the Taiwan Strait, all these are no longer isolated concerns. All these issues are intertwined together now. So we need to face these issues together. And so through today's 6 sections, our members of Congress, former senior government officials, cybersecurity professionals, and military leaders, and also economists, human rights advocates, and distinguished experts from Taiwan will examine these challenges, and more importantly, identify practical opportunities for us to collaborate and for practical actions as well. So I would like to thank our event partners, Hello Taiwan, as well Global Service Center for quitting the CCP, and also all our sponsors. Some of them don't want to be named, so very kind sponsor behind, and we really, really appreciate everyone's support. So, well, thank you for joining us. So it's my honor to open our Chinese Freedom and U.S.-Taiwan Security Forum 2026. So next, I would like to introduce Congressman Andy Ogles. Without Congressman Ogles' support, this event will not be possible. And thank you so much, and thank you for your staff. There have been tremendous support for our events. And Congressman Andy Ogles from Tennessee. And so right now, he's the chairman for the House Subcommittee on Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection. So let's welcome Congressman Andy Ogles. So I would like to, at the beginning, can you say like a brief opening, and then we start our session 1.
Well, good morning. It's a great opportunity and honor to be here with you as we discuss this important time in really global history. When you look at the aggressive techniques and tactics of China on the global landscape, and the important partnership that we have and need to continue to have with Taiwan. And so as we go out throughout the day, we'll talk about some of these tactics, some of the threats that we face, not only here in the United States, but globally from this adversary that oftentimes dresses itself as an ally or as a partner. Meanwhile, they're undermining us and, quite frankly, the global landscape. And so it's an honor to be here. I can talk and pontificate all day long, but let's get to the panel. I confer to you, good doctor, and let's get this started.
Check your microphone. All right. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Sean Lin, the Executive Director of the Concilium Institute. And I would like to open our first section. And of course, you know, the first one is very critical, very important. And so we talk about, you know, critical infrastructure protections, cybersecurity, all these important issues. We want to bring it as the first session when we are fully awake. So this first session, we are very fortunate to invite three distinguished speakers with us. First is the Congressman Andy Ogles, and then we also have Yu-Chieh. So Yu-Chieh is a CSIO from Coupang company. Coupang company is actually a Fortune 500 companies, and so he's in charge of Taiwan and Japan right now as a CSIO. And also, he's also a board member for Taiwan Hacker Association, right? So, sounds very, very serious, hackers. So, and then the third distinguished guest is Professor Yu-Chieh Li from Taiwan. So, he's connected right now. Professor Li, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm online. I can hear you.
Great. So Professor Yu-Chieh Li currently is a senior advisor for National Security Council from the President's Office in Republic of China, Taiwan. And we're really glad that he can remotely connect with us to join this discussion. So our first section is titled as Enhancing Collaboration, U.S.-Taiwan Cybersecurity, Information Freedom, and Countering Digital Totalitarianism. So at the beginning, I want to say cybersecurity is no longer only a technical issue handled by information technologies. And so usually in the past, when we talk about cybersecurity, we always think, oh, that's IT guy's job, but no longer in such a status right now. And so it's now totally inseparable from the issues of national securities, economic securities, public safeties, democratic governments, and the protection of individual freedom. Even last week, we heard about President Trump's speech about China's hacking the voters' data in the United States. So there are so many issues involved with cybersecurity. So at the beginning, I'd like to ask Congressman Andy Ogles, so from your perspective as a chairman of the Subcommittee of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection, what do you observe as the most imminent vulnerabilities inside our cybersecurity domains?
Well, I think when you look across there's different categories. So you have the public sector, so our government institutions. Then you have, and there's scale to that too. So you have local, you have state, and you have federal. Then obviously you have private corporations, and much of that is integrated now. So with everything going to the cloud, with that connectivity, so for example, it's probably 2, maybe 3 months ago, the FBI had a breach in its system. It was a very periphery breach, but it was through the telecom, so it was upstream. So that connectivity to the cloud, to telecom, created a backdoor or a side door for our adversary, China, to try to get information. Primarily what they got was benign. But if they did get numbers, they could cross-reference that with Chinese or Taiwanese dissidents across the United States and try to figure out where they're located. And so that information in the right hands to the right person has value. Otherwise, it would be worthless to most people. Yeah. And so when you go down to the local level, where we've seen Salt Typhoon, for example, in the various attacks against the United States critical infrastructure, it's hospitals, it's water systems, it's electrical grids. So part of my job on Homeland Security, and quite frankly, I really look through everything through that national security lens. So whether I'm also on financial services, which is banking, I look at that through the national security lens. So whether it's following terrorist money, because I'm on the National Security Subcommittee, whether it's looking at what's going on the global landscape with China, is again cyber for me, and everything about cyber and AI, which now the subcommittee, when initially, envisioned, didn't necessarily include AI because AI didn't exist. And now,
Yes.
2 years later, we've gone from ChatGPT being really, or the various AIs, really just a search engine on steroid, to being more dynamic and being more capable, where it's integrated with business and community, et cetera.
Yeah. So I think you have more a daunting task compare your predecessors, because
Absolutely.
we are in the AI age. It's so challenging. Even last week we saw Xi Jinping sign an agreement with so many other countries to back up his AI plan, right? So for the Congress, for the committee, do you currently have like a AI strategy? How do you work with the AI innovators, top leaders in the AI industry? How do you think this committee can actually take bigger roles in this aspect?
Well, part of that is building those public-private partnerships where the U.S. government's working with universities and corporations and building that framework and that platform. Because so if you go back to the Cold War between the United States and Russia, there was this race, this nuclear arms race, and there came a point of saturation of that threat of mutual destruction. And at some point, both countries, we had enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world many times over. And so then it became about delivery systems. Who could do it the fastest? Now, whether it was 8 minutes or 12 minutes or whatever, it was minutes. And so you hit this moment of détente where both countries, there was a stop in the building and advancement of the stockpiles, if you will. The difference with the United States and China, when you look at AI and compute power, there is no horizon. Yeah. And it's developing at an ever-increasing rate day by day, not just month by month or year by year, but day by day, that we're seeing these aggressive leaps in advancements. And so we're now in this race with China to continue to have the dominant agents, but then also compute power. And so we have to recognize that China has a tendency to borrow, shall we say, intellectual property, and they'll use whatever mechanism or means to borrow and copy that technology.
Yeah, borrow without asking, right? So
exactly. I think they call that stealing.
Okay. So next I want to ask Professor Lee. Professor Lee, so you are at a very, very critical position. You are advised the government of Taiwan regarding the cybersecurity policies, and in the past you were also a leader in like technology innovations in the cybersecurity domains. So I would like to ask you, give us some like brief overview. What's Taiwan government's strategy in dealing with the cybersecurity as well as the infrastructure protection? In our forum, we want to see how can we exchange our thoughts and our actions. We can be united as a democratic allies. It's kind of muted.
Yes, I just turned on my microphone. Thank you, moderator Dr. Lin. It's a privilege for me to join this important discussion virtually on enhancing Taiwan U.S. cybersecurity collaborations. And I'm so happy to share with you, actually in last year, 2025, when I see in the my office, National Security Council, actually we released our national cybersecurity strategy. And I think that's a very important milestone for Taiwan cybersecurity communities. And in this strategy, actually, we have 4 pillars. The first one is whole society resilience. We do believe that the public cybersecurity awareness and cybersecurity hygiene is so important that can be reduced about more than 80% cyber attack. And in this pillar, we also talk about the private PPP, private-public partnership. And we try to incorporate the cybersecurity industry into this domain and to help the government, help the private sector to improve the cybersecurity maturities and so on. And we have a second pillar. Actually, we focus on the critical infrastructure, homeland securities. And we do believe that if there is a massive cyber attack on critical infrastructure, that will be a very strong indicator for Chinese invasion Taiwan. So the CI security is on the top priority for our national security policies. And that's including the sector like the power plant, communication, transportation, and also the finance and so on. So that's a very important area we spend so much time to focus on. And also in this area, we have a strong collaborations with the U.S. government, and we do have a lot of support from the United States. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the Congressman Andy Ogles. That's really important to Taiwan. Please keep support Taiwan in this area. And the third pillar is about the supply chain securities. And that's so important, especially in recent cybersecurity incident. We really find out your hardware, software, even your service is achieve certain cybersecurity level, but the supplier, the vendor, probably will become the largest vulnerabilities. So we need to understand the entire supply chain have to be secure enough. Not only because the service or hardware, software security, but the supply security maturity is also important. To be honest, I learned this concept from the United States DOD at that time. They call the CMMC certificate. We try to introduce this concept into Taiwan. And I believe that it's really useful for our cybersecurity level. And the fourth one is about the emergency technology for cybersecurity. And we do believe that use artificial intelligence can help us solve a lot of cybersecurity problems that will enhance our cybersecurity industry. And also, we face the shortage of cybersecurity experts. I do believe that the AI tool can help. But at the same time, we also worry about the cybersecurity issue of AI itself. We do believe that when the whole society introduce a lot of AI application into the society, at the same time, we also create the vulnerabilities, the attack surface, if the adversary, they know how to attack the AI system. And since the last year, Anthropic actually released a report. It's saying that Chinese hackers actually use Anthropic agent to develop the cybersecurity attack program. And according to the report, the human only need to spend like 10% or 15% effort, they can complete the cybersecurity weapons, use their large language model. I think that's become a very scary tool. And recently, in this April, and Anthropic also announced a project Glasswing, because they have a new model called the Mythos. And this model is so powerful, they can find out the so-called zero-day vulnerabilities and in a very short period of time. And some vulnerability can be found by human expert. That means if the hacker can have this kind of tool, they will find out lots of critical information systems vulnerabilities. Also, they can use these vulnerabilities to attack the system. So the Glasswing project, I would like to say that's a kind of responsible AI. So they did not release the model before the important system fixed their vulnerabilities. I think that's great. But until now, Taiwan, we don't have this opportunity to join this project. But I think we take the action. Actually, we think about Mythos is not the only one tool. There are lots of AI tools still have this kind of capabilities. So we try to use some other tool and try to fix our problem as soon as possible. So these 4 pillars, I think, is very important to our national cybersecurity strategy. But we also have some international collaboration plan. Of course, the United States give us a lot of support. And we also try to link with some democracy allies, including Australia, UK, Canada, and all of these countries, we have, they are like-minded, and their technology is so good, and we would like to work together, especially focus on the critical infrastructure. I think that's a very important part. And we would like to work closer and try to make the democracy allies and can be more safe in this area. I think that's also important. And since Taiwan, I always say that Taiwan is the largest honeypot in the world. If you want to understand the most evil, advanced cyber attacks skill that developed by China, North Korea, Russia, and Iran, I guess in Taiwan we can have a lot of malicious sample, and we are quite open. We would like to work with United States and let's find out a way to defend our democracy war. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lee. Thank you for sharing an overview of the Taiwan's national cybersecurity policies and give us good understanding about the 4 pillars. And as you mentioned about, it needs a whole of society's approach to deal with the cybersecurity threats. And so we're glad to have Howie join us. And so Howie, can you share from, civil society angles, and you have experience in the past with Amazon's, you have dealing with the cyber threats for Amazon as well. So can you share about your views on this?
Sure. First of all, it's my great privilege to be here. You could see those are company-approved contents, but I will try to make it freely to communicate. If you are not familiar with the company called Coupon, it is the e-commerce company headquartered in Seattle. It is one of the largest U.S. product exporter, exporting the products to Korea and Taiwan. And it is also the largest e-commerce company in Korea, and we are investing billions of dollars in Taiwan and hoping to be the largest as well. So that's your intro for the company. And I'm also part of the Association of Hackers in Taiwan. And I think I must provide some context here that why we do have a hacker group in Taiwan. As Dr. Lee mentioned, we have faced more than 2 decades for advanced persistent threats from our neighbor country, you know which country. And those attacks, we've seen then, for me, it started from my high school period. So I was curious that why so many Taiwan government websites got defaced. Defaced meaning they got hacked and their page got changed. So at that time, I started to self-learn cybersecurity. In Taiwan, there are many people like me, my peers at the association, that they wanted to defend cyberspace for Taiwan. So those hackers united together. We started to have hacker conference, which called HICOM, since 2005. And till now, we have tens of thousands participants joined. And we also contributed to vulnerability research and also participating in global capture the flag competition. And they're actually competing in Vegas in the upcoming months. So that's about Hacker Association. And I wanted to talk about how we protect the company from cyber threats. Before Coupon, I was working as Amazon's security leader for 10 years, as Sean mentioned. From e-commerce company or tech industry, I think digital trust is the fundamental of our business. And to protect customer data, their trust with the company, I think that's a critical mission we need to do. But how can we translate that to everyone's responsibility within the company? So we need to build the security-first culture in the company. We will go through internal security awareness training. We will define internal policies, asking them or educate them to understand why this matters to their work, to their customers, to the company. And then we need to embed security and privacy requirements into the business processes. Because we call shifting left. Shifting left, meaning that we want to identify the risk before even putting detection or responding to a security event. That's most cost effective. So we will review their security architecture, technical details, do the security assessment, identify risk, and then mitigating those. And Dr. Lee also mentioned about supply chain risk and those associated vulnerabilities that might possibly pose to the company or even the critical infrastructure of the country. So for our company, what we are doing is we call VSA. It's a vendor security assessment. Basically, if we want to onboard new vendors, we need to go through those processes to understand your security maturity. If they are not hitting the bar, we will put a requirement ensuring that they follow our practices so they don't introduce their weakness to potential attackers. Because it is so vulnerable that also similar to how we protect critical infrastructures, that the supply chain, those vendors or contractors, they are most of a risk that we will consider, and we need to protect them. And the next step is that how we develop our services and products. We call secure SDLC and defense and deep mechanism, meaning that we ask developers to follow the secure coding practice. We use nowadays there will be AI tools to help the developers to identify security bugs upfront. And then we will do pen testing. Pen testing meaning we have security engineers to identify the bugs from dynamic testing, static testing, and then red teaming. Red teaming meaning that we are simulating attackers' mindset, try to attack into the system before the real actor does. After pen testing, red team, what's next? It will be bug bounty program. Bug bounty program meaning that we are inviting the researchers over the world to test our services and products to see if there will be any bugs missing. So I actually launched a public bug bounty program at Amazon. We were able to identify and fix thousands of vulnerabilities that may impact the company or the customers. But one challenge I will mention at a company that some service team or business teams, they want to introduce the services as soon as possible. They may see security as their blocker. They don't like to be blocked or their services to be delayed. So how we tackle with that is that we need to build a trust internally as well. We talk to them, communicate with them, ensuring that we are the team to empower their business. We are here to support them to expedite the security reviews, but we still need to ensure the services they are delivering to public or to the customers, they are secure and they are safe. And then after those, the last step we will do is tabletop exercise. We want to understand if there's a real incident happen to the company, how can we respond? We have stakeholders, different leaders. In the war room, we should discuss, we will have a scenario from the real world that if there's an incident from the external attackers or sometimes insiders, how can we defend ourselves? If the worst case scenario happen, how can we ensure business continuity? So those practices will help us to understand what's the gaps, right, before the real incident happen. But we talk about inside of the organization. How about outside? From Coupon's point of view, we are seeing us, so we should partner with external parties as Chairman and Dr. Lee also mentioned PPP. We should coordinate with our peers, security communities, public sectors. So what we're doing in Taiwan right now, so Coupon is not only doing for our own good, we are bringing cybersecurity leadership from U.S. to Taiwan, to Korea and Japan. And how we are doing that, there are two examples I could mention. One is that we are introducing, we call RISEC, Retail ISEC. ISEC stands for Information Security Information Sharing and Analysis Center. That is a center for allowing the peers to share threat intelligence. If there's one company of our peers, they got compromised, they can share the malware samples, they can share the intelligence with other companies so they can put those indicators into the detection. So when the attacker try to target them, they will be able to defend from their side. So that's the idea. But before that, Taiwan didn't have that. And how US does that? So when I was at Amazon, we can freely talk to our peers like Target or Walmart for threat intelligence sharing or sharing our experiences or which solution we are using. But in Taiwan, of course, from business point of view, they are competing with each other intensively. So it's hard to convince them that, hey, could we partner together, could we collaborate? But in cybersecurity or in cyberspace, the reality is that our only enemy is not our peers. Is the real attackers. They are the only enemy. So we need to collaborate together because even for, let's say, Walmart or Target, I'm also their customers. So, for attackers' point of view, they don't care which company they will target or that sometimes they will target all of them. So we should work together. So that's one thing that we're going to launch in September. And another approach is that we want to educate Taiwan's general public. How we do that? We're going to introduce Taiwan Cybersecurity Day on September 21st. September 21st is a day that Taiwan had the most significant earthquake in the past. And we want to use this day to bring cybersecurity awareness to the general public, also to provide anti-scam, anti-fraud education, online safety, protecting their online accounts. Those educational materials that we will advocate on that day. And it's similar to approach in U.S. In U.S., we have, like CISA, they have the Cybersecurity Awareness Month in October. And this is a similar approach in Taiwan. So yeah, from Coupon's point of view, we not only wanted to be a practitioner, we want to be an advocate for a secure digital economy. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Howie. You were sharing so many critical information as well. We were all surprised, I think, for most of the time you think Amazon, Target, and Walmart, they are competing each other. When you talk about cybersecurity, they will worry about that. You are stealing information from my big corporations, right? So if they can open up to collaboration on cybersecurity, it's actually a big step, forward. And so actually I want to ask Congressman Ogles, so actually through your communications with the industry here, right, as a committee chairman, you probably oversee many of their efforts. Do you see some similar efforts in the U.S. to bring in, these different big corporations together on the cybersecurity front?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the framework for corporations being able to talk together or to one another, obviously there's some legal concerns and privacy concerns that they have, and so part of the where that public-private partnership comes in is where the U.S. government, whether it's changing laws or giving permissions so that companies can talk in real time, because best practices they're important. And so, Walmart can learn from Amazon, Amazon can learn from Walmart, and then across that retail or that marketplace. But because what's different about AI, so ever since the internet was created, we've had hackers, we've had people curious, not always malicious, but seeing what they could accomplish, right? The AI tool, so the doctor mentioned Anthropic, where you had an individual who was able to use AI as essentially that AI became a team that was working with the individual, where he was putting in 10, 15, maybe 20% of the effort. And that is, so there's a beauty to AI and what it's doing to innovation. So, for example, I was touring a factory just recently. And in part of the process on the assembly line, there's a particular point where they see higher rates of injury. And so they're able to use AI and AI robotics to take the human out of that process. They reduce injuries and downtime for the corporation. And so that's the benefit and the beauty of AI. But then we also realize that you now have these agents that are constantly scouring the internet, constantly scouring corporations that otherwise would take a team of hackers weeks, if not months to do. It can do it in a matter of minutes or hours. And so we have to recognize the benefit of AI, but also the downside and the risks. And so that gets to this, as that awareness of risk grows, it's a fantastic what you're going to do in September, I think you're going to see increased collaboration because companies now realize they can't go alone, right? There is strength in numbers, and what you learn and you share helps me learn and get better that I can then, and that's building trust in this process. And then you look at China, so the doctor mentioned Taiwan. And that critical infrastructure and the disruption of critical infrastructure. So when you get, again, going back to Salt and Bolt Typhoon, why would China want to embed software in the U.S.? Right? Chaos.
Killer switch or different critical things.
That's right. So suddenly, if you can create global chaos here in the United States, where water's not working, electricity's not turning on, when you look at the global trade that comes in and out around through the ports of Greece, which we know that China has been collecting that data of supply chains coming in and out of those ports, by creating, disrupting commerce, by disrupting water here in the mainland and in Taiwan, that would create that opportunity that quite frankly, China would need for some sort of kinetic activity. So I think it's a reality. I don't know that they would ever do that, but they're certainly preparing, in my opinion, as if.
Yeah, so actually, since you mentioned Taiwan will have a bug bounty and also tabletop exercises, right? So actually, Congressman, do you see in the U.S., we also have big scale of this kind of bug bounty. How do we collaborate with Taiwan on these kind of efforts? I feel their skills can be shared, and then maybe after your response, how you can mention about the APT, Advanced Persistent Threat. How has it advanced actually in the AI age right now? Because we talk about APT for a long time, but what is new in APT?
When you look at the intelligence community, during World War II, we had 5 eyes, where you had this shared collaboration of information. Then it became, 7 and then 14 eyes. And depending on the country and the level of trust, what you're sharing back and forth is different per country. I think you're going to see that type of collaboration as we go through specific to AI and vulnerabilities of what we found. So there was a European manufacturer. They had been hacked. They had their software, AI software stolen. And then subsequently, they were finding bugs in their system. We now know, with the help of the United States, this corporation had been hacked, and then actors in China had left behind malicious software to disrupt the commerce of this specific corporation. And so again, this gets back to where the United States was helping a European company figure out what was going on, who the culprit was, and then what was the damage done. And so I think you're going to see more and more of this collaboration, where you have a 5 eyes or a 7 eyes type of collaboration between nations.
It sounds like we don't have enough eyes to watch all the cyber.
No, exactly, which is where AI comes in, for better or worse.
Yeah,
I think something I can share with you.
Great.
There is a film on Netflix called 0 Days. actually that demonstrates a large-scale cyber attack on critical infrastructure. And that's no longer a pure fiction, but a scenario offering valuable lessons to policy makers and decision makers. And, you know, I saw a lot of attack news. The Chinese hacker attack Australia, Chinese hacker attack the US and UK. At that time, I always think if China is only interested in Taiwan, they would like to take over Taiwan. They should maintain a very good friendship with these countries and treat Taiwan as the internal affair. But the reality is, after I watched the 0 Day film, I figured out China tried to do the vote typhoon, so typhoon to all of these countries. If they would like to take over Taiwan, they just need to press a button, and then they can launch a large-scale cyber attack on cybersecurity for this country. And the whole of society, whole of the nation will into a chaos. That will create a perfect window for China invade Taiwan. At that time, each country have to take care of the internal affair, internal society. They cannot send any support to Taiwan. So I think that's a main reason UK, US, and Australia, even Japan, they under attack from the hacker of Chinese. And another thing I can share with you is about the APT. And recently in Taiwan case, we find out the phishing skill had been advanced because of AI. They can send the phish mail, actually will customize for each person. And not only that, they try to collect personal information with certain category. Last month, we have MOFA have an international conference, and there is a QR code on the poster. But we find that there is kind of an attack. They just replace the official QR code, replace a fake one. And if people would like to register that event, that conference, they will scan the QR code and do the registration, and they will collect the personal information. And this personal information actually will map to the particular category so that they can launch the APT attack. I think because of AI, a lot of strategy has been changed. That's become more certificate, that become more advanced. So the public awareness, we need to provoke that. And in Taiwan, we always, if we find a new attack skill, we will provoke the public awareness. I think that's also important.
Thank you. Right. And let me cover a little bit about APT. We mentioned a couple times. So APT is basically a targeted attack. It was defined by FireEye. In 2013, they defined the first APT1 actor as Chinese POA actors with the evidence they all collected. APT meaning that advanced, meaning they are using advanced techniques to compromise their target endpoint. Persistent, meaning that they will stay stealthy in their computer for a long time. It could be months, it could be years. In some cases, in high-profile victims or targets, they may stay for long, very, very long time, being undetected, because they'll keep changing their remote control payload or their remote control tools. So what would change if AI can means that could empower APT attacks? Dr. Lee already mentioned, and right now, of course, everyone knows that AI is a game changer, but from cyber's perspective, what's changing? It's changing the scale, the speed, the economics of cyber attack. They now can perform attacks with very low cost. They can reverse engineer very complex, difficult payload, identify exploitation or weaponize a lot of new things that human could not make it. So it has become very challenging for defenders to protect their system against AI-empowered reconnaissance or phishing or APT, spear phishing attack. And Dr. Lee mentioned about they are now have perfect spear phishing emails, because in the past, it's very simple for Taiwanese people that they can differentiate if it's a fake one or real one, because we do use different terms between Taiwan and China. So we know some keywords that's different. But now they're perfect. They don't have typo anymore. They even have, Dr. Lee mentioned about they have those PR information, personal information. So recently, there's we call security contractors of POA. It's called non-sec. So now China is leveraging external parties to conduct cyber espionage activities, but not just by their own. In their disclosed data, there's a database named 公务员, meaning the public servant or officials of Taiwan government. There are 500,000 records of them, meaning Chinese hackers, they already have every person who works for public sector in Taiwan. And I believe that applies to the U.S. as well, because they attacked, They
attacked the OPM several years ago, right? We already lost.
It's very easy for them to say, hey, for this email belong to which person, and they could just map and to build very beautified, highly customized, and very high rate of success rate to double click and get compromised on your machine. So from AI perspective, unfortunately right now, it's more advanced on the offensive side. That said, black hat hackers who are doing something bad, they're using AI to identify or doing vulnerability research. At the same time, the reality is that white hat hackers who are doing something good, they're also using that. But the challenge is that to fix the vulnerability is very difficult. There's a website called zerodayclock.com, and they measure time to exploit, TTE. That's the time window between when the vulnerability got introduced and the time that vulnerability would be exploited, meaning that would be leveraged by actor to do something bad. Right? In 2018, defenders still have 2 years and 3 months. How about now? 10 hours. So we don't have time. It's so fast that they could identify bugs, and then they could exploit, weaponize it, and then they could just compromise a network. So it's very challenging for defenders. And let me kind of provide context about in the past, before AI, how researchers would do. Researcher will try to identify the patch. So everyone, you will see Windows update when you use your laptop, right? And sometimes from Mac OS as well. Those updates are trying to patch your computer to fix those vulnerabilities, so you won't get compromised by some exploits. Right? In the past, researchers will try to research those patch to see which part they changed, and they would just try to guess where is the vulnerability. Now they just use prompt to ask AI, find a bug for me. So that's why reduce from years to hours. So what we can do now, defenders are getting nervous. So one thing we need to do is that we need to scale ourselves. Of course, the demand of cybersecurity talent will increase. That's one, because we still need a human in the loop. But of course, we will need AI tool to help triage alerts, because there will be a lot. We also need AI to review code, because in a company or in many spaces that now people are leveraging AI tool for those non-engineer background people, they will be able to vibe code any application they want. But there might be security vulnerabilities in those applications. What we would need to do in a company, we need to review those, right? We have an AI review process to ensure after they vibe code it or the usage of AI is secure. That's one thing that we really need to pay attention to. And for AI tools for defenders, now there's limited solutions right now, but I think this space is still challenging, and Taiwan has a bunch of people who are experiencing hands-on will try to defend the companies or the countries at the front line and in countering those highly sophisticated and frequent APT. I think one thing I will echo what Dr. Lin says, that we should collaborate in terms of U.S.-Taiwan collaboration, deepen our collaboration in AI security, also vulnerability research, because those Taiwan engineers, they definitely could contribute, and I hope that could be mutually beneficial, and that's something Taiwan can help for sure.
Thank you. So definitely you've already mentioned about workforce issues. I want to jump in for three panelists to talk about workforce later. But one very interesting question after you mentioned about the advancement of APT. I was just wondering, in this AI age, in the future, will AI not just help, like quickly detect where the vulnerabilities, but actually can automatically create patches. You can triage, right? You mentioned triage, different scale or severity of the threat. So some of the threat, the AI can handle by themselves, and then, easier for leaving the bigger tasks for human powers.
Well, that would be the perfect world we want to live in. However, in reality is that when we do patching, for example, in your laptop, if you have open windows, like you have Word, you have PowerPoint open, you cannot patch it right away, right? So similar to business, they have services operating 24/7. They could not disrupt. They could not impact customers. So if there's an urgent patch we need to do, then we may need to take down the service. But sometimes we don't have pressure time on that. So automatic patching, that's very ideal. But in reality, that we may need to do more work to, one is to categorize the services, the assets, which assets that with priority, we need to patch first, and we can have backup system. So when we do the patching, we can have automation help us, and others that we can leverage AI to automatically remediate, fix everything. That would be very ideal. But hopefully, that'll become one day that we have that solutions.
Okay, thank you. The real challenge is always more difficult. So, Professor Lee, so I want you to touch upon the issue about workforce shortage in Taiwan, and also at the same time, can you also mention about the scale, about the attacks that Taiwan been facing every day? We always say in Taiwan is the forefront, the battlefront for cybersecurity defense. And so can you give us some sense of what kind of attack you're facing every day, and then what's the workforce shortage related? Oh, you are muted.
There is a number showing that in last year, the CI in Taiwan faced cyber attack every day is 2.6 million. Of course, we count every trial as an attack, and the success rate is quite very, very low. But this number is showing that the hackers' intention, they try to attack Taiwan CI very, very intensely. So 2.6 million is the number, but I think this number is just showing that we need to do a lot of things to protect our system. And in order to do that, under the success assistance from the United States, we try to build up the team. We have a National Institute of Cybersecurity. They try to build a team called the OT exercise. They majorly focus on operation technology security. That's for the power plant, for the water, for the transportation. All of the OT security is slightly different from the IT, but we build up the professional team for it. Not only the NICS have the OTEX. For the MMD, we have a team, the military defense, military national defense, Ministry of National Defense. They have a team called the CHT, Cybersecurity Hunting Team. They also focus on the OT securities. And so the shortage of experts is a key issue, but we use the AI tool and to roll down the threshold. all you need is a basic training, and you will know how to use the tool. That will make you become an expert in a short period of time. And I think that's the issues. And we try to scale up our manpower. And because the threat is so intensive, 2.6 million per day is a huge number. But to be honest, the system will automatically detect more than 99%. And we still need a different line to filter out all the attacks.
Great. And so, Congressman Ogles, actually, after all these, insights about Taiwan's reality facing all kinds of cyber threats, I actually also wondering, will you make it even harder to sleep at night because so much advanced threats nowadays? What about the shortage of the workforce in the United States?
Well, that's true. And, as he mentioned, 2.6 million attacks, right?
Every day.
The hackers, if you're on defending, whether it's your nation state, your company, et cetera, you've got to be right every time.
Right.
The hacker only has to be right once, right?
Yes.
That's why you see the volume, and that's where AI is such a useful tool for the black hat actor, is because they now can automate. So like their cost, what one individual could do today with AI would have taken a team just a few months ago, much less a few years ago. And so, yes, so as chairman of cybersecurity, I get classified briefings that a lot of members of Congress don't get. And so already, I'm aware of the attacks, from China, from our adversaries overseas, and which is why I'm turning gray. No, I'm kidding. But I think there's a reality. So as you look at these best practices across the corporate landscape and then the private public partnerships, but also amongst governments, that different nations bring to the table different skill sets. And so there may be, that time, which is today, quite frankly, where you have countries that otherwise may have differences, whether it's history, whether it's trade, whether it's politics or policy, what the UK or the US, what Israel or South Korea, what Australia or Germany brings to the table is going to be a little different, whether it's offensive or defensive skills. And recognizing where we can partner together to face this combined threat or this mutual threat, which is China. Because ultimately, we know what their ultimate goal is. We know what the jewel is that they want, and it's Taiwan.
Do you actually think maybe in the future, like CISA would, like the DOJ, in the past DOJ have a special China task force, China project. Do you think actually U.S. will actually establish something that on the cybersecurity domain to specifically analyze what's the advancement in the cyber threats from China?
One of the things, for CISA is to really collaborate and communicate with the private sector and be a resource for corporations, a reporting mechanism for corporations to get this information into, kind of the pipeline of threats. But as when you look at our intelligence communities and CISA, I think that the risk that any country faces, the United States included, is you tend to have an over-compartmentalization. So if you go back, let's think 9/11, you think of the intelligence community, there was lots of pieces of the puzzle that were across various intelligence infrastructure or agencies. Had they had the full picture, would it have been preventable? I don't know. But I think the same lesson can be learned with AI, is that whether it's Amazon may have a piece to a puzzle, South Korea may have a piece of the puzzle, Taiwan may have a piece of the puzzle, but if we're not talking, we may not see that full picture because, as you said, we don't have months or years to respond to a zero-day vulnerability. We have hours, and communication is key.
Yeah, and also we also talk about the real vulnerability is actually in the human aspect because, do you trust the cybersecurity professional you're hiring, right? Maybe in Taiwan, similar situations, as we know, China infiltrated into Taiwan as well in the United States. So for those cybersecurity professionals, how do you set up a guardrail? Is there any way you can check on these credibilities or reliability of these cybersecurity professionals? Professor Lee and Howie, can you comment on that?
Yeah, I could try in. It's about insider threats.
Yeah.
So we talk about hackers. They will try to attack systems. Those are external threats, right? They need to understand technical context about how to exploit the vulnerabilities. But insiders, they are employees or they are government officials. They already have access. So those people, we categorize as needs to have a definition of insiders. So current, formal employees and contractors who has the permission to access and they could damage the security of individual company or even a country. And nowadays, actually the insider threats, the cost of those threats are higher than external threats. And there's a recent report, it's an insider threat report this year. It mentioned about every company they surveyed, they are spending about $2 million per year, which is 20% increase from 2022. And then because of the increased insider events, those companies, about 67% of those mid to large size company, they are building the insider threat protection team to handle those events, and which allow them to reduce 7 insider events per year and $8 million of loss, which got covered. But in Taiwan, what we are facing, Taiwan are facing challenges not only from cyber espionage combined with insider, but also human-based espionage. But there are real examples that Dr. Lee will be very familiar with. So for POA or MSS, Ministry of State Security of China, they are targeting Taiwan's military personnel who face the financial challenges, and then they will offer loans. And in the end, they will ask for military secrets in exchange, basically asking them to become the spy for China. In 2024, there are 64 military personnel got prosecuted. 5 years before that, it was 6. So the it's grow from 6 to 64. You could see the risk is getting higher. And how about not only public sectors or military sector, but also critical infrastructure? If we consider TSMC as a CI, there's a news yesterday came out, which is there was a former TSMC manager that got recruited by China and asked that former manager to provide 21 documents that contain Taiwan's semiconductor secrets. TSMC security was able to detect that, stop that, and that person was sentenced for 7 years. So you could see they are targeting those, and from insider side, it is hard to prevent or detect, but of course, there will be the way that such as we need to monitor data transfers, data flows, network activities, and we will need to implement anomaly detections, sometimes we call DLP, data loss prevention, to control the outbound connections. In US, it's more advanced. So 2012, there's an insider threat policy got introduced with the executive order. There will be a task force that guiding the critical infrastructure operators to build up the capabilities for prevention, detection, and response against insider threat. And I also want to echo Chairman about CISA. CISA is actually helping private sectors a lot. They are providing vulnerability information, providing guideline framework, allowing us to build up mature security team, and allowing us to bridge with other companies to collaborate. So I wanted to recognize that part as well.
Okay. And Professor Lee, do you have some comments to add on that? Yeah.
Yeah. When I finish the National Cybersecurity Strategy, we have 4 pillars. But after discuss with the Howie, I think we need another pillar for insider threat. But After that, I review my strategy again. In fact, we have a component we need to introduce zero trust architecture inside the system. Zero trust means we need to multiple factor authentication for identify the person. But we also need a signal for the device. Other than that, we still need to watch the behavior, like how we mentioned that anomaly detection. We need to observe the activities so that we can prevent the insider threat. But anyway, the human always is the biggest vulnerability for the cybersecurity system. And I think very important is about the education, and also we need build up the culture in Taiwan. I really hope all the Taiwanese people have the same mind, try to protect our country, try to protect the human right, try to protect democracy value, and so on. I think that might be the only way to reunion all Taiwanese work together so that the insider threat will decrease. For the private sector, you need to build up the company culture, enterprise culture, so that the people would like to work for the company, work for the enterprise. And I think that's beyond the technology part. We still need some education, build up the working culture. I think that's also important.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Lee. I think your message actually is good for every countries who are seriously dealing with cyber threats. So your message is actually very, very full for global audience. And also, Chairman Ogles, I'm also wondering from your perspective. Of course, the trust between the democracy ally is fundamental before further collaborations on the cybersecurity aspect, right? So from your perspective, what would you expect the Taiwanese government, any further improvements on this aspect? And also, as Professor Lee also mentioned about like CMMC certificate, supply chain vulnerabilities, how do they improve so the U.S. can collaborate more with Taiwan?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to echo one point. As you get into, education, and you're educating your country, your citizens about, internet, cyber hygiene, device hygiene. You're educating on the threats and the vulnerabilities to citizens, but also to corporations. You're also educating individuals, and I think, going back to workforce, there's a demand, there's a need there. So I think you can do both at the same time, where you're encouraging people to look at cyber and cybersecurity and AI as a path forward, but it's also a vulnerability for the nation. So there's a patriotic, especially for a country like Taiwan, there's a patriotic call to arms of let's get educated. Are you willing to serve your country and your people and your community by going into this field? As far as building trust, I mean, obviously we have a great relationship with Taiwan. I think part of that is information sharing, and part of it is just an awareness. So as you look at the global landscape, when you look at the threats facing the United States and our allies, our military apparatus, our intelligence communities, our government, the bureaucracy, it's busy, right? And so you have to, again, educate and raise awareness that this has to be a priority as we look at those zero-day vulnerabilities, as you're trying to anticipate when that moment in time comes, because once it gets here, it's too late. You have to have built the trust. You have to have built the communication pipelines. And arguably, that 0 day, that moment when that attack is coming, that has global consequences. I don't know if that first moment is going to occur in the Middle East, or if it's going to occur in the Pacific, or if it's going to occur here on the homeland, but somebody's going to see it first. And we'll have seconds or minutes to react to it, and to communicate and make sure that our partners and our allies are rallying to our defense, to your defense, right? Because once it's compromised, there's no going back.
So it's actually like it's a chain. So if any step you are broken, the whole thing will collapse. So especially when you talk about, the collaboration between Five Eyes, Seven Eyes, all these. So if any country actually have particular vulnerability or maybe, have suffering more from China's cyber attacks, then the whole situation is actually devastating. So we're wondering if you have any message as well, to other Five Eyes countries or Seven Eyes. So how do they, improve? How do they learn from Taiwan's experience?
Well, I mean, now we're getting into this to the commerce side of the equation, where you have countries that are looking at using China's AI models. As you look at countries importing Chinese technology that is now driving through their streets, communicating and mapping and relaying every bit of information back to China. Now we're talking about where should AI servers be housed. So if you're a United States a citizen, would you want that data center here in the United States, or do you want it in China? I would argue that we don't want our AI data centers in China, because we know that that data center is going to be under a unique attack, whether that's external or through internal personnel threats. And so having those honest conversations about what does that mean if you opt for that Chinese technology that ultimately could undermine your own country's welfare, much less the global welfare. And then we see in South and Central America and Africa where China has come in, they've created this dependency on their technology, their supply chains, but that is to use as leverage. In the same way they might find a member of the military or the government that's having financial trouble and they offer them loans, and then they got you. Right? They're always, playing. You have to understand your adversary, you have to understand their techniques and their strategies, and China is always playing that long game, that long-term investment that will reap long-term rewards. So I think part of this conversation isn't just the communication, it's talking about commerce and collaboration and understanding that when you look at IP theft, arguably, and tell me if I'm wrong, there's one China that does it more prolifically than any other nation that I'm aware of, and that would be China.
Yeah, so China's strategy is particularly serious in the cyber domain area. So I have friends who dealing with China cyber attack for decades, so they are protecting some critical information websites, and also especially for many dissident groups or group being persecuted. So they are facing China's attack every day as well. And they can see the advancement of China's attacking technologies. And so it's a long tag of wars, because they can create new ways of attacks, and then they have to immediately, patch up or find up new tools to defense. So it's a non-stop, battling in this process. So also we start to understand China's digital dictatorship, authoritarians or totalitarianism is no longer just in those era when they just set up the Great Firewall, right? So it's a lot more outgoing now. It's a lot more attacking outside. It's a lot more offensive positions right now. So under this kind of new age of their ways of, attacks to the democracy societies, how do you think that we can better prepare ourselves, protect ourselves against China's advancement on, total digital totalitarianisms? Because they are also not only just harming the Chinese people, it's also exporting their digital totalitarian message to other countries. You see many of the South Asia countries, many of the African countries, using China's digital totalitarian message, tactics, toolbox, let's say. And so they are quickly advanced as well. So how do we break through their kind of alliance?
Well, again, it gets back to education and understanding that, if again, technology is wonderful. When you look at medicine, when you look at conveniences, when you look at transportation, there's a whole list of wonderful things that have and can be accomplished through technology. But if you're sacrificing your personal privacy, if you're increasing the surveillance state, you have to have an honest understanding that what you're sacrificing in the process. So when you look at China, when you look at the social score, when you look at the digital currency, it might sound great at first, but there's something to be said about saying no to a digital currency because it's about control. And understanding every time you cede to technology and digital totalitarianism, you have to recognize that you're giving up freedom. Mm-hmm. Freedom lost is hardly ever given back.
Yeah, it's so easy for them to connect with the social credit systems and other
That's
things.
right.
Yeah. So for many of the countries worldwide, they have no other ways to like quickly advance in like AIs. They are not like the U.S. has so many powerful companies, powerful technology. So that's why last week we actually see Xi Jinping will manage to bring so many other countries to join his like AI cohort. So these kind of strategy, how do you think the U.S. government should counter, or even from Taiwan's perspective, how do you break through? People always say Taiwan is an AI manufacturing hub, but how do you defend Taiwan if China pull many countries together as an AI cohort? They're using their own technology, using their own algorithms. How do you deal with these new threats?
Well, I will take this question as not part of my company. I think there's a smart strategy by China. So one is that they are open sourcing their models, and they are allowing others to provide feedback, try to fix bug, so that they could compete with commercial models. And also, we could see many talents, even in the States. Those AI companies, most of their scientists, they are from China. Then they may be well connected with their home country or with their or education system or their previous companies. So those would be the risk. And what Taiwan could do is, I think, would be working closely with our like-minded allies. And of course, Dr. Lee could mention more about the countries putting more investment into the AI education. We do have academic and also government-powered education resources to have more AI engineers. And along with Taiwan's hardware manufacturing capabilities in advanced chips, hopefully that we will be able to have we call more like secure supply chain, working with our like-minded countries like U.S. To strengthen our capabilities against the other part of the parties who may leverage AI against us.
And I would say that the stronger the collaboration among free countries, again, we're stronger together when you're combating a common enemy or a common threat. And so just as you might have an adversary, whether it's on the battlefield or in the cyberspace, building a team coordination across countries and continents, we have to recognize that threat and do the same thing. And so the stronger that the more we're communicating and the more we're working together, again, the stronger we are. Because again, whether it's Israel or France or Germany or Australia or the United States or the UK, we all have different strengths that we're bringing to the conversation because we're facing different threats. So the threat that a South Korea faces is going to be somewhat different than the threat that Israel faces, or what the UK is facing versus what Australia is facing, right? Because even though they have shared histories, they have different geographies, they have different infrastructure, they have different governments, and then to your point about educating and creating that workforce, those AI engineers, because there's going to be a human element in this landscape for a very long time. Quite frankly, I think we always want the human element working in concert with AI because it's a check and a balance, right? It's a safety mechanism.
Yeah. Professor Lee?
Yes. I just discussed with my colleague about the open model and closed model. And the United States AI companies spend so much money to train the model, like the GPT 5.6, like the Gemini and the Anthropic. They spend so much money to train the foundation model. But in China, they use a distillation. They use a distillation hacking to steal the AI model from the United States and make it open. And we don't know, is there any backdoor actually embedded into this open model? So that's become a very big challenge to the whole of societies. So I think this problem for a while, maybe we should develop a so-called AI guardrail. Even people use the open model produced from China. And with our AI guardrail, they can filter out the malicious outcome and also can protect the entire system. I think that might be technically we can solve this problem. But one thing I would like to point out, China, they always make things become very cheap. And then if you don't have any awareness of the potential risks in behind, then the entire country will under the control of China. There is two examples. The one is Huawei. They provide the communication infrastructure for the developing country. It's almost free. And even United States, you have to contact some other country, but their infra actually is provided by Huawei. That's one thing. Another example is the CCTV. In China, they make CCTV very cheap. And they also, right now, they use the AI. They can collect all of the individual activities. And they make it very cheap. And different countries purchase the CCTV from China so that China can collect entire world's activities. And we recently find that even Taiwan's government banned the ICT production from China. But some company, they will rebrand the CCTV, even with spend much more money to purchase Taiwanese brand, but the inside still made in China. At beginning, I think that's the really embarrassing situation in Taiwan. But in fact, the U.S. company, even the Israel company, they also have the same problems. And there's an example is TWNIC is a Chinese company. And if you look at their annual report, you will find out the top 10 customers of TWNIC. And all of these customers actually do the rebrand things. And we find this fact by the cybersecurity examining. After we find there are so many different brands with the TWNIC inside, we go back to look at the TWNIC annual report, and we find out this interesting phenomena. So I think that is a very important experience. We are happy to share with our allies, and we warning that. But I'm quite positive because 10 years ago, we probably don't have any awareness about Chinese intention. But now we understand that. And so I think that's a very good starting point. And I would like to echo the congressman saying that of the allies, we should share our skill together. Sharing the intelligence is not enough. We need to share the skill so that we can defend the entire societies. Yes.
And Professor Lee, what you describe seems to me is like actually China's long-term strategy, right? So, for example, they allow many companies, including Huawei, to sell so many CCTV surveillance cameras and already all over the world. And now they push out AI. They can use edge computer to grab all the data and then connect the world. It seems to be a real long-time strategy. Are we too late in this one?
I don't think so. Yeah. Another example is about the drone, right?
Yeah. Drone also have a lot of camera on there.
Yeah. So I always say the drone, ISR, is just like the moving CCTV. And I think the awareness is very important. And for the CCTV issue, since we point it out, and you can check it, you should make this disconnected to the URL built inside of the CCTV. And we still have some technique can prevent this kind of information leak. But you point out China, they play a very big game since so many years ago. And at the beginning, people enjoy the benefit from China. But now, if you look back, they have a huge national strategy to take over the entire world. So I really appreciate the awareness actually since Trump 1.0, he provoked the clean network. I think that's the first step. We aware of the server or even the power code. If that kind of material, that kind of device made in China, that create a big vulnerabilities. And that's about 6 years ago or 7 years ago. And I think that's take long time to fix all of the vulnerability, but at least we aware of it.
I will say when you look at global dominance, whether it's healthcare, whether it's military, whether it's commerce, the new battlefield is cyber. Everything is interconnected, and every single day, more appliances, more modern conveniences, more hardware, everything is moving or is touching or being touched by the cloud. And so when you look at the long-term game, when you look at the big game, as you said, China has early recognized that the key to global dominance, the key to being a global superpower is cyber. You no longer have to have the strongest military. You have to be a dominant player in the cyberspace.
Totally agree. Another example is about the EV. They try to build up the vehicle-to-vehicle network. That will become the next disaster.
EV is already entering into so many global market already. So we kind of, again, we are one step behind CCP strategy. But their true product is everywhere, right? So really become like what you just described. So CCP's aggression in the digital domain is the way they kind of try to realize their old-time dream. They want to conquer the world. In CCP's world, they want to liberate the whole world, but now through the digital domain. Yeah, so under this kind of new transformation of the Chinese Communist Party's strategy, do you think that, U.S. as a leader should have a different way to look at the situation right now?
Well, I can't speak for everyone in the United States government, but clearly we recognize the threat and who the threat actors are. Anytime I'm speaking on the cyberspace, I clearly articulate that the greatest threat is China. Obviously, we have other adversaries. We have other black hat actors, whether it's a nation state or groups working on behalf of nation states. But at the end of the day, the adversary that I think we must be most prepared for, that we need to be most defending against in their future plans is China. But I think that's why conferences like this, countries communicating, and I could envision that this type of conference is taken to different countries. So you do the next one in Taiwan, and you do one in the UK, and you do one in France, as we're educating global leaders on the threats that a BYD or whatever corporation may pose to your local community. The data that they can collect and harvest, and not only is it just streets, because we can see streets from satellites, but if you have a vehicle with AI and cameras, they're also learning who's at the coffee shop at 10 a.m., who's buying a bagel at 10:15. They're seeing and they're learning these life patterns, which is significant when you're trying to undermine a nation from within, if you're looking for opportunities for espionage. And so these are all critical tools that again, knowledge is power. It always has been. But in this digital age, sometimes I think I see some of our adversaries like China collecting data. They don't necessarily how it may be helpful or useful in the future, but they want the data regardless.
Yes. So finally, I want to see any particular legislation efforts from the U.S., from the Taiwan side to enhance education or enhance collaboration, enhance communication. So wondering what's your vision for any additional legislation efforts?
I think from legislative perspective in the United States, we have agencies and capabilities already in place. I think from a regulatory regime, we need to make sure CISA has the right tools and liabilities. So if they're working with an Amazon or a Microsoft or a healthcare corporation, that information can be shared back and forth without any sort of criminal or civil liability. I think that's something that a lot of the corporations in particular are concerned about. And then I think within our military apparatus, we have a lot of capabilities deployed throughout the U.S. military landscape, but making sure that those are communicating with one another so that in real time, again, getting back to those 0-day moments, you don't have days to figure it out, you've got hours. And if something starts at 7 a.m., you at best have until 7 p.m. to have a solution. And if the different agencies within a government are communicating, you have a problem. If the different countries across the world that may be affected aren't communicating, it's a problem. Go back to COVID, where you saw this virus that was beginning to spread. Initially, there wasn't great communication between nations, and it spread rapidly. It jumped to Italy, from Italy across Europe, from Europe across the pond to the United States. The question is, had there been earlier intervention? Had there been better communication? Each country was going to respond on its own accord, but again, that communication piece, those days or weeks that were lost, made a difference in the spread and how the virus was treated. I think that, although entirely different, it's in the healthcare space, is applicable to the cyber realm as well, where communication minutes matter. And currently, that is an advantage that China or any black hat actor has, is that lack of communication.
Professor Lee, any particular legislation effort from Taiwan?
In Taiwan, we just passed, revised the second version of Cybersecurity Management Act. And in this act, actually we require even the private sector have to follow some regulation. And for example, if the company on the stock market, if there is any cybersecurity event, they have to make the announcement to the public. And also, we will require all the CI should be match a certain cybersecurity standard. And we also have a system to do the reporting, have a system to do the auditing, and try to enhance their cybersecurity level. But one thing, I think we still have a room to improve, because many company or CI provider, especially for the telecommunication company, they always will use that. It's about the personal data, and we cannot do the enough cybersecurity exam. I think we need to resolve this conflict. Sometimes the cybersecurity should be on the top priority, of course, under the certain requirement. And we try to protect the human right, but we think the national security also on the top priority. We need to serious to resolve this problem.
Thank you so much, Professor Lee. And so we don't have much time left. And so finally, I want to say thank you for our three panelists. And I also want to say special thank you for Professor Lee Ha-Ming, who is also a senior expert on cybersecurity in Taiwan. He has been giving us advices. And please appreciate, convey our appreciation to him. And so maybe 10 or 15 seconds, final words for people in the front here.
One last thing I will mention is that there's a joke in Taiwan security community. Taiwan, we don't have much national resources, but we have tons of malware samples. So there are a lot of things that we can try to contribute. And I'm part of a nonprofit in Seattle. It's called Next Foundation. We help students land a job in States. We are observing that more Taiwanese students, they are coming to States to study cybersecurity fields. And they are actively got employed and then actively contributing to U.S. cybersecurity industry. So I'm hoping in the future, if there is any fellowship program, exchange program between U.S. Taiwan security communities or between the talents, I think that'll be very helpful for collaboration we just talked about today. Thank you.
Thank you for putting this together and for the esteemed panelists. I think this is clearly, whether it's a strategic plan for a government or for a business, you identify your problems, right? And you identify what those solutions might be. Or if it's for market share, you identify what that solution and how you're going to get there. So we know what the problem is, we know what the threat is, we know what the security issues are, and now we know what the solutions can be. And so this is the first step in a process of moving our nations closer together to working on cyber threats and security as it faces the global landscape. And it's important that we understand that the threats that face the United States or face Taiwan is what faces South Central America, which faces Europe. And if we're not talking, we're losing. And I refuse to lose.
Thank you. Professor Lee, your last comment?
Okay. I totally agree with the congressman mentioned that cyber should be the most important things. And currently we can use AI, use advanced technology to protect the cybersecurities. And we try to protect Taiwan as a Taiwanese, protect our countries on our top priority. But Taiwan also know that our responsibility to the world. We have a very proud semiconductor industry. We know it's so important to the entire world. But not only that, we still, on the democracy side, we try to protect the whole humans' core values. So I would like to work, I think Taiwan would like to work with the allies. And if you want to work in cybersecurity area, I believe that the trust is the most important thing. And with a lot of collaborations, we can build up the trust layer by layer, from the sharing the data, sharing the intelligence, and then we need to share the skill. And we should discuss more how to protect, build up the, we can say the cyber dome together, so that we can prevent the attack from the Russia, North Korea, and Iran in China. And I like today's title called the Chinese Freedom and the Taiwan U.S. Security Forum 2026. At the beginning, Dr. Lin, you mentioned that we hope all of Chinese people can enjoy the freedom. I think when they enjoy the freedom, when all of Chinese people enjoy the freedom, all of the issue will become very minor. And I believe that we work together, sooner or later, this day will come.
Thank you so much, Professor Lee. You summarize our vision. Thank you very much. Right, let's give a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. So I think today's activity, you will have very successful forum, and I will have a very good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you for that insightful discussion. Thank you. Now our attention shifts from protecting digital infrastructure to understanding how influence is exercised through information, media, and public opinion. Our next discussion is titled Countering CCP Influence Operations, United Front Activities and Strategic Infiltration. So please welcome our moderator, David Zhang, social media influencer. Welcome, David.
Good morning, everyone. The panelists you guys want to come up to? We have Dr. Bradley Thayer, we have Nick Epidemiadis, and we have Cheryl, and also Dr. Liu. If you guys want to make your way up here. Good morning, everyone. So our session 2 is going to be on countering the CCP influence operations, United Front activities, as well as strategic infiltration. And it's my pleasure to moderate this panel today. I want to thank our distinguished panelists for joining us. When people think of competition between great powers, they often think of something like military force or economic pressure. But often, increasingly nowadays, we're seeing this taking place in the gray zone. Through influence operations, disinformation, cyber activities, economic coercion, and cognitive warfare. And for me, as a China commentator, one trend I've noticed that's growing is the sophisticated attacks and waves of attacks that the CCP has been able to put onto our young people through messaging, particularly content on social media that's tailored to Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Millennial. And these are the things that I'm looking forward to getting some answers from our panelists as well. The challenge for democracies is unique. We engage with openness, free exchange of ideas, and access to information. And these are our strength, but they can also be exploited. The question is how democracies can recognize and counter-influence operations while preserving those same freedoms. And Taiwan has been on the front line of this challenge for decades and has developed valuable resources and responses through government, civil society, independent media, as well as technology to counter that. The experience offered by Taiwan there are going to be important lessons for us here in the United States and other democracies. Today we'll be focusing not only on understanding the problem, but also on practical solutions. What countermeasures work? What can we learn from Taiwan? And as AI, we've just discussed in the first panel, continues to reshape the environment, what can we do or what can we look for within the next 5 years? With that, let me just quickly introduce our panelists. We have Dr. Lucy Liu, who is sitting second to the right. She is Associate Professor at Shenzhen University in Taiwan, Executive Director of the Taiwan Liberty Society, and member of the Whole of Society Defense Resilience Committee in the Presidential Office of Taiwan. Her research focuses on China's political warfare, cognitive warfare, cross-strait relations, with particular emphasis on how democracies can respond to authoritarian influence operations. And we also have Cheryl Yu from Jamestown Foundation. She is a fellow in China Studies, and she's the second to the left. Her research specializes in the Chinese Communist Party's United Front system, overseas influence operations, covert activities in democratic societies. One of her most recent report is actually one of my favorite think tank reports ever. So very honored to have her join us. And then to the very right, we have Dr. Bradley Thayer, leading scholar of international security and strategic studies and a founding member of the Committee on the Present Danger, China. His research focuses on grand strategy, deterrence, military affairs, and strategic challenge posed by the CCP. And he's written extensively. We've done some interviews together as well. He's also the author of Embracing Communist China, America's Greatest Strategic Failure. And on the left here is Professor Nicholas Efthymiadis, one of America's most foremost experts on Chinese intelligence and espionage. He is a professor in Penn State's Homeland Security program and served for 34 years across the CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, Department of State, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. He is the author of the seminal book, Chinese Intelligence Operations, which is widely regarded as the foundational work on China's intelligence services and espionage methodology. So we'll begin today with each of the panelists giving their presentation. How about we start with ladies first? Dr. Lucy, do you want to go ahead and start? If you need the slide, just tell them next slide.
Okay, so slides, please. Okay. Oh. Okay, today I prepared the slides, so did you receive my slide? Could you show the slides? No? Okay.
We should have it. Just need to put it up.
Okay, so let me introduce myself. So I came from all the way from Taiwan to here, and I'm the associate professor in Yu-Chieh University. I'm in the communication college, and also I'm the the member of Whole of Society Defense Resilience Committee under our President Lai. So it's a new committee starting from 2024. We have done a lot on defending Taiwan in a whole of society approach. So anti-infiltration is the first step to build resilience. So that's why I was selected in this committee. And today I'm going to share something about the Chinese infiltration. I will show you the evidence. And so it will be more about the educational institution. So our research focuses on how CCP infiltrates grassroots organizations such as temples or village head to influence our election results. And moreover, because I'm in the communication college, so my research team also study how CCP is using TikTok to influence our youth. So let me start. Okay, next. Okay, so here is my outline. So I have 15 minutes, right? Okay, good. And so first, I will show you our academic research on the CCP infiltration of temples. And it has been published in a first-tier academic journal. So actually, this is very strong academic evidence. And also, the second thing is, CCP is evolving. So the new trend of the influence operations are a little bit different. So I'm talking about the new trend that they are using short video that everyone knows. And they also shape Taiwanese perceptions of the U.S. And that's a difference. So before you might think, okay, that's the China-Taiwan issue only. But no, now CCP is putting all the information warfare under a global context. So it's U.S., Taiwan, China in their narrative framework. Okay. And in the final part, I will talk about how to counter those infiltration. Okay, next. So Russia and China always work together. They learn from each other, but there is still something different. So Russia's cognitive warfare relies heavily on online misinformation, and CCP they emphasize more face-to-face engagements. So they try to build personal networks to our grassroots organizations. So this is the paper we published in Foreign Policy Analysis. It's in the name of Mazu, the use of religion by China to intervene in Taiwanese elections. Yes, our election somehow is stolen. Yeah. And Mazu is the goddess of sea. So she has a lot of followers in Taiwan, and she's very influential. So the next. So here you see the map. It's the map of Kaohsiung City in South Taiwan. So temples, Mazu temples are like Christian church. So every community has its own church or temple, and the temple is locally rooted, and it's connected to your daily life in the community. So it has a lot of influence in your political attitude. And also you can see that we have about 160 Mazu temples in Kaohsiung City, but not every community has one. So the density of temples are different. The variations of Mazu temples is associated with the difference in election results. So there should be some cause and causation relationships. Next. So the story is Mazu is female god. So in Chinese tradition, so if you are female and you got married, then you have your own family and your original family. So the Chinese tradition is saying that, okay, so daughters need to go back to their original family, and for Mazu, and it's the tradition. And so China, CCP is using this narrative to say that, okay, Mazu, the goddess, need to go back to her original home every year. Where is her home? So in their narrative, they said, okay, her original home is in China. So they invited followers in Mazu temples to to worship in China. And so here is actually we have economic behavior model and also statistics model to explain the results. So I just show the results quickly, and then we will revisit the story, the mechanism. And we use spatial regression, and we find that urban Mazu temples can influence election results. So if the community has more Mazu temples, then there will be a shift from pro-China politicians, from pro-Taiwan politicians to pro-China politicians. And which means if there are more Mazu temples, then people will vote for pro-China policies, which is quite confusing. So next. Next, the slides. Okay. So that is because China CCP is bribing temples. They provide money or resource to those temples to invite their followers to China to build a link with CCP officials. But in our research, you find a difference. Some Mazu temples are bought, some are not. Rural temples tend to have more stable community of followers. So actually, they do not organize pilgrimage trips to China. So in rural area, the rural Mazu temples do not shift the voters to pro-China policies. But for urban temples, then you can see that followers come to the pilgrimage trips to China, and then they are shifting to pro-China camp. And through these networks, you can see that it's beyond the money, it's beyond the financial incentives. So they try to send political messages through those networks they built with the Taiwanese followers. Okay, the next. Okay. So let's talk, that's the research we published 2 years ago. So 2 years later, we also observed some new trend of Chinese influence operations. So China's economy is going down. So they have budget constraints. So the physical contact actually spent a lot to sponsor the pilgrimage to China. Took a lot of money. So now CCP is more likely to rely on low cost online information manipulation. And also remember AI technology. So advance in AI technology actually reduce the cost of online information manipulation. So AI technology can start very large scale online misinformation operations and at a very low cost. And what you can see that TikTok, every young every young person is using TikTok, and CCP is shaping Taiwanese perception of the U.S. through those short form videos, and it's very interesting. So they know that Taiwan young students, they in their education, they know that, okay, CCP is bad. They know. So they try to convince the students on the other way. They try to erode Taiwanese trust in the United States. So now in their narratives, it's not only China, Taiwan, it's China, Taiwan, U.S. And they put the information warfare under a broader global context. Okay, the next. So about the online social media manipulation, so my research team is still, the research is still ongoing. So we haven't published the full paper, but we are going to show more quantitative and qualitative evidence. And so those are our findings. So if you are using Chinese social media platform, not only TikTok, but maybe Little Red Book or Weibo, and you use those Chinese social media platform more often, then you are more likely to be skeptical toward the United States. You don't need to love China. They just want you to untrust the United States. And also, if people are using those Chinese platforms more often, then they have greater identification with China. And the third, which is important. So in our research, the statistic regression shows that the influence is not limited to young people. Actually, middle-aged and old people are all influenced by those short video, and difference across age groups are not significant. So all age are influenced. So this is important. So if we want to confront those infiltration online, then we need a plan for young people. We also need our plan for middle age or old people. They also need to build their resistance to those online information manipulation. And the last, which is interesting. So if you have more confidence in democracy, actually it can mitigate the influence of Chinese social media information manipulation. So through our education, if we can emphasize, if we can reinforce people's confidence in democracy, then they will be more resilient, then they can resist those information manipulation. Okay, the next. So how to counter those new infiltration? And so about in the case of temples, if the temple has more resilient community, that people trust each other, and the temple doesn't need to get new money from CCP, then CCP has no way to infiltrate those temples. And same thing happened in the online. So to counter those online information manipulation, and the most effective strategy is not to defend. I would say that we need to go on the offensive. That doesn't mean that we need to ruin the platform. No, that means we need to bring out our own narrative. We need to tell our own story. We need to send credible, engaging, and positive content to the platform. And in communication studies, Scholars already found that people are tired of fact-checking. So you can see that fact-checking or correcting misinformation is almost ineffective. So we need to bring out our news story. We need to go on the offensive side. Okay, the next. And so we need to come to the battlefield of short-form video. We cannot see the short-form video space. We need to build our narrative using short video. But we should avoid Douyin or TikTok, because for those Chinese social media platform, the algorithm is still controlled by the CCP. So our efforts will be totally useless. So we need to avoid those Chinese platforms. We still have the other platforms, such as Instagram Reels and the YouTube Shorts. So your good, positive content can be spread out through those platforms. And the final, reducing CCP's influence over TikTok global information is very critical. We need to undermine their effective control over those platforms. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. Should we just do ladies first? Cheryl, do you want to go next? Or you can sit here too if you want to.
Never mind, I already stand up. Hi, everyone. So first of all, thank you for having me, and also thank you for the kind introduction. As mentioned, my research primarily focuses on the Chinese Communist Party's Overseas United Front network, and that includes the channels that they use to build out the network itself, and what they have been using the network for. And so my recent report that's published, we mapped like over 2,000 organizations across 4 countries, including here in the United States. And we've also looked at not just these 4 countries, but including Taiwan, where we published another report on Taiwan last year with Global Taiwan Institute, where I believe there's like more than 150 United Front linked organizations in Taiwan. We've also looked at European countries and other like Mexico. So based on those data, I want to share 3 key findings. The first finding is that the Chinese Communist Party politicizes almost everything. So in the report, we categorized the 2,000 plus organizations into 8 different categories, including identity-based organizations, business associations, business and trade related, culture related, education related, there's also media and other types of professional organizations. And from those, you can see that the Chinese Communist Party basically touches on the organizations touches on almost every sector of the society, including those that democratic societies don't consider political. So, for example, a Chinese restaurant association, they are also part of the United Front network. There are also like the education-related stuff, business-related stuff, culture-related stuff that we usually don't think should be political in democratic countries, like in Taiwan or in the United States. But to the Chinese Communist Party, everything is their political resources. So they use these kind of tools to build their relationship and to make sure that they'll be able to create this network where they will eventually be able to use them when they need to. So party-linked organizations often carry out activities that look benign, such as local-level exchanges, people-to-people exchanges, youth conversations, and economic activities, but they often have strong intentions behind them, which is to try and build up this network of its friends that can be activated when they need to. And the second point is that this type of influence is done through relationship building. And a lot of times these kind of like United Front activities and also relationship building events are not illegal. They operate through access, personal ties, social engagement, and like invitations. And the way that the party built out this network usually start by identifying influential leadership, influential community leaders, influential organizations. And depending on the party's need at the time, they might target like specific group of people. So, say, for example, during Deng Xiaoping's time when he was pushing for the reform and opening up policies, they specifically mentioned the so-called upper-class Chinese, the upper-class overseas Chinese as their United Front target. And then during Jiang Zemin's, so the upper-class Chinese, like they'll be able to, bring in investment, bring trade, bring their resources to the party. And then during Jiang Zemin's time, when they need technology and need talents, they specifically mentioned overseas Chinese students and scholars as their United Front target. So once they have their target, identified, these individuals may then be invited to visit the PRC, being given advisory roles, recognitions, honorary titles, and other benefits like business opportunities. And this is also how we identify the United Front linked organizations. It's through looking at the leadership connections with the United Front system. So, for example, if a leader, say, for example, Zhang Qian in New York is like he was invited to the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, I think a few years ago, as their overseas delegate, we will come back and look at this person's connection with like the organization he is affiliated with in the United States. So if he's like affiliated with like 6 organizations, we will count these 6 organizations as part of the United Front linked. We will consider these 6 organizations as the United Front linked organizations. And so back to the relationship building point where when they are building relationship, it's not illegal. I want to mention the Chinese American Federation as an example. It's an organization based in Los Angeles. A lot of their leadership, including their chairman, multiple principals, board members, have been invited. Either they are like the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference overseas delegate, or they might be the ACF-ROC, the All China Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese, like overseas council member, or they might be affiliated with the COEA, the Chinese Overseas Exchange Association or Friendship Association. So there are a lot of leadership connections, but when you look at their day-to-day activities here in the United States, they look like normal cultural community organization. So we looked at like over 200 events, 200 of their events between 2013 and 2025. We saw that like 30% of their events are like local community events where they, invite, host like New Year Gala to gather local Chinese community, or host like Dragon Boat Festival, like the local like cultural events to gather the local community. But there's like 10% of their events are internal events where they host like to consolidate their internal members. Like their board meetings. And there's 15% of their activities are connecting with the PRC. So like whether it's like hosting United Front officials when they're in the United States, or them having a delegation to the PRC for travel, for other stuff. And there's another 30% is like the U.S. impact. I call it U.S. impact activities where this organization try to expand their reach within the U.S. community, which is to like say host another cultural event where they like say host a marathon with the local Los Angeles Police Department. So from those activities, you can see that whether it's the CCP building activities with this building relationship with this organization, or when this organization is building relationship with the local community, the things that they do are technically not illegal, at least during their relationship building point. So that is why it is very effective for the party, and why this is so hard for democratic societies to deal with. The third point I want to make is that once this relationship building like this, once this network is built, now they have this network that they can activate when they need to. And so after this like years of relationship building, the party effectively has this infrastructure of people and individuals and organizations overseas that can be activated when they need to. So with this network in place, it's like currently the data that we have is like over 1,000 United Front linked organizations in the United States, more 150 plus in Taiwan and elsewhere. the party has this ability to make requests. So this network, the same network, has been used for a lot of things that we saw. So for example, we saw that they have been using this same network for narrative shaping. They have been using this network for intelligence gathering. They have been using this network for emergency mobilization, government influence, transnational repression, technology transfer, espionage, talent recruitment. So there are a lot of different things that the party needs, and this same network of their resources and people, that this infrastructure they have can be directed to do things when the party needs them to. And so I'm going to just briefly share two examples. So the first one is narrative shaping. So United Front networks are often used by Beijing to amplify the party's preferred narratives through local actors. And because these messages comes from community organizations or local leaders rather than directly from the state, they can appear locally generated and legitimate rather than state directed, right? So for example, we have seen mobilization against Taiwanese officials passing through the United States. For like the CAF, the Chinese American Federation that I just mentioned, although generally like they are hosting the New Year Gala and like Dragon Boat Festival kind of event, but at the time that the Taiwanese officials passing through the United States, they were asked, they would like put out statements saying that they are opposed to it, they are against it, and sometimes they might directly fly to the location to protest against those, against President Lai's visit when he was like the vice president of Taiwan. And this CAF has also protested against Hong Kong protests during 2019, 2020. There's a lot of different things like that. Say during Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, there's a lot of local United Front linked organizations protesting or putting out statements against it. And those statements are being used to lobby local politicians and representatives. And so when these activities are being carried out by local actors, they can give the impression that they represent the views of the local community instead of coming from the state. So this allows the party's narrative to circulate among democratic debates as if it were locally generated views. Another example I want to share is about emergency mobilization. I think during COVID, it was a very successful example when the party used this overseas network at scale to mobilize over the overseas community and individuals, not just organizations, but also overseas Chinese-related United Front-linked companies also participated in that. So I think back in 2020, in March, when I started to realize that, we should get masks, we should get this and that. But it's too late already, because when I visited the local CVS, the masks are already gone. It's already gone. Because 2 months ahead, in late January 2020, the Chinese Communist Party's United Front system already mobilized the overseas network to ship things back to the PRC. So one concrete example, on January 26, 2020, the Zhejiang FROC, the Federation Return Overseas Chinese, Wenzhou United Front Work Department, and also Federation of Return Overseas Chinese, they put out an initiative directly stating that the party needs help. So asking the overseas Chinese community to mobilize them to make sure that they ship their things back. And within 2 or 3 days, most of the organizations and individuals are able to, gather the resources and make sure that they, mobilize their contact locally to make sure that they can ship things back to the PRC. Including, say, the U.S. Zhejiang General Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Zhejiang Commerce and Culture Association, where they said they are shipping things back because they are responding to the party's need. I understand that there are people that are really want to help their family back home, and which is totally understandable. But the party at the same time has been mobilizing the same network at scale to make sure that they get what they need during this emergency time. And so I think these examples show how this United Front network is not passive. It functions as infrastructure that can be mobilized quickly when the party needs them to. So I want to conclude with one thing that the democratic states can do, which is to make sure that things are transparent. I think at the federal level, make sure that FARA is enforced. At the state level, states should have their own because currently the federal level FARA doesn't regulate states. And for Taiwan, I think it would be nice to have something similar to make sure that foreign agents are registered. I know things are complicated in Taiwan at the moment, but I think that's the very least that government should do, which is to make sure that officials, current and former, military personnel, current and former, should register if they are interacting with any Unite Front linked system and agencies. So I think for democratic states, most effective response is to make sure that infrastructure of this infrastructure of people and organizations should be visible as early as possible so that the party doesn't take advantage of the openness of democratic society. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Can we have Dr. Thayer? Do you want to go next?
Well, David, thank you very much indeed for the introduction, and thanks very much to Sean as well and the organizers of this very important gathering for giving us the opportunity to address these extremely important topics. I'm appreciative as well for mentioning my co-authored book, Embracing Communist China, America's Greatest Strategic Failure. And it may be of interest that next month I'll have the next book, America's 100 Years War, How to Win Against Communism. And so very much looking forward to that. And some of the points that I'm going to make briefly today are made in much more detail in that book. David and Sean gave us a great menu, a cornucopia of topics in which to address. I'm going to pick two, though. I'm going to look first, as they asked us to look at the Chinese Communist Party's political warfare strategies, the use of the United Front, why that's important, and then related to the second topic, I'm going to address what we can do about it, how do we defeat it. And in essence, the answer is what the answer Lucy gave, which is to go on the offensive against it, to call the CCP out, recognize what the CCP is, and then work collaboratively to defeat it. So what's the CCP's political warfare strategy? Well, the political warfare strategy of the CCP is rooted in Bolshevik thought. The Bolsheviks sought to create the United Front to use a mechanism that would be able to identify and then unhinge society. So using tactics, for example, of penetration, working with intelligence organizations, working with front organizations, they would be able to move into a society and advance a communist revolution by, if you will, identifying the centers of power and unhinging them to bring about that revolution. Bolsheviks, of course, were experts at political warfare. The CCP learned from them and is also expert at political warfare, at penetrating societies. Very sad to say, the United States, as well as innumerable efforts against Taiwan. Many countries, all countries around the world, be they great or small. That effective tactic needs to be combated, and it needs to be combative by looking at really the essence of what we're discussing. First of which, when we look at any type of response to the Chinese Communist Party and their United Front tactics, is to recognize what's happening. I'm very pleased to see that Taiwan has reintroduced education for military officers with respect to communism after a 25-year, essentially a quarter-century absence. That's extremely important to know the enemy. And it allows us to understand that the United States should adopt similar tactics, related tactics, to allow individuals to understand what's happening in the United States, the nature of communism, and fundamentally why communism is illegitimate. There's no reason why the CCP should be in power. It's an illegitimate government, and it should be treated as an illegitimate government, the way apartheid South Africa was. It is because the Chinese Communist Party is a product of Soviet imperialism. It was put in place by the Soviet Union, generated by the Comintern, of course, put in place by the Soviet Union, and sustained by the Soviet Union, and American mistakes as well. When we see the CCP in that light, we recognize, of course, as an illegitimate government, a colonial government, in essence, the product of Soviet imperialism. It has no right, there's no obligation to support it as the government of China. In fact, it is not. It has no business ruling the Han people, Han civilization, and all of the denizens, of course, of what we call today the People's Republic of China. Understanding communism also allows us to understand that it's hyper-aggressive. It's always attacking, whether that's through the United Front tactics or whether that's through other mechanisms or kinetic means as well. That hyper-aggression, of course, has to be identified and it has to be matched. And that can be done in a variety of ways, but defense against the political ideas, recognizing the political genesis of the CCP, recognizing its illegitimacy, and recognizing, of course, its irredeemably evil and corrupt nature needs to be, of course, part of our offensive against it. What else can be done? Well, very usefully, the fiscal year 2006 Intelligence Authorization Act, which was signed in December in the National Defense Act, authorized the intelligence community to once again conduct a study of the wealth and corrupt practices of the CCP. That is, it's a bit incongruous for the leaders of the Chinese communists to be billionaires, and yet all of them are. That needs to be identified and called out, as the U.S. intelligence community is working to do. That will provide several advantages. It will allow us to see where Xi Jinping actually hides his wealth, other 7 members of the Standing Committee, all of the Politburo, and really focusing on additionally 25 other senior communist officials in the People's Republic of China. That allows us to see where they've hidden their wealth. That allows us to see through, obviously, many organizations, fronts, layers, family members, etc. And it allows us to understand for all audiences worldwide the true nature of the Chinese Communist Party, as well as, of course, the Chinese people to see that and to be able to recognize the nature of their leaders. What else can be done? Many other tactics can be employed, and many other arguments should be advanced to provide that the appropriate response. Perhaps just limited by time, second big element that should be done would be to educate the world, that is again all global audiences, about the nature of Taiwan, the importance of Taiwan in international politics, the importance of Taiwan in a relationship increasingly combative with the People's Republic of China. That Taiwan matters for 3 major reasons. The first of which, of course, is the economic one, which gets a lot of attention. Obviously, in terms of chip production, in terms of the other mechanisms, the other industries, of course, that your president has emphasized, in terms of development, including AI and advanced communications. The economic component is absolutely essential. If we were to lose Taiwan in a kinetic attack or through subterfuge, other forms of political warfare directed against Taiwan, the world would be in depression. Secondly, Taiwan matters because of its geostrategic space. It's located in a very valuable area of the world, the first island chain, but extremely important for, if you will, serving as the cork in the bottle against the People's Republic of China's People's Liberation Army Navy and other efforts of the PRC to expand its power and to subvert countries in the region. Thirdly, and perhaps most significantly, Taiwan matters because of its political history, because of what it means in political warfare. Taiwan matters because it shows what China should be. It shows that Taiwan moved from authoritarianism to democracy, full-fledged democracy, as it is very robustly today. And that allows the world to recognize, again, that the PRC is illegitimate. The Han civilization is absolutely compatible with democracy. The Chinese people are absolutely compatible with democracy. And Taiwan shows that to the world. And you can see why the CCP wants to destroy Taiwan. It wants to eliminate that, a very embarrassing element from the standpoint of the Chinese Communist Party. So for economic reasons, for geostrategic reasons, for political reasons, Taiwan is absolutely significant. And that allows us to see that the relationship between the United States and Taiwan is extremely important. It should be, it has been. When Americans recognize that, we can see what Taiwan contributed, of course, in the Cold War against the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China, and what Taiwan can contribute, obviously, today in the current Cold War against the People's Republic of China. So its importance cannot be underestimated in this element. It really allows us to understand, perhaps in the future, if and when the CCP has fallen, what China might be again, and the type of government that China once again might possess. So when we reflect on that, we can understand that defeating political warfare of the CCP is really going to be done through going on the offensive and calling the truth, identifying the truth about the nature of the Chinese Communist Party and what its ambitions are, what it seeks to achieve, and how it can be defeated, as of course we hope it will be. The last point I would make, of course, is just to conclude, would be for all global audiences once again to recognize that we're in a very precarious situation. The People's Republic of China, of course, is increasing coercive measures of all nature in terms of military measures, but also in terms of political warfare against Taiwan, working to isolate Taiwan increasingly, and working in the United States to minimize the importance of Taiwan. Again, the message of getting out why Taiwan matters for the world, including the United States, is absolutely important. But I'm heartened by the Trump administration's increasing recognition of the evils of communism. When that identify that as a starting point, we can see that the relationship between Washington and Taipei, on that basis alone, should be an increasingly warm one, and we look forward to seeing that brighter future, of course, in the relationship between Washington and Taipei. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Thayer. All right, last but not least.
Showtime.
Nick F.D. Miatis, thank you.
As David mentioned, and thank you very much for inviting me, David did about a month ago, and I'm a professor at Penn State in Homeland Security after a career in the intelligence community. And so I don't represent Penn State. They always remind me to say that. In just a moment, you'll find out why. So there I was a month ago, and David presented me this opportunity. And I said, well, how would one of my students address this? So I did nothing up until last night. And then about 10:30 at last night, I got them playing video games and said, okay, now I'm going to look into this. Same way my students would. So, of course, I went online and looked at AI, as my students would. And I said, what does Nick F. Miatis have to say about CCP political warfare? Use only his published works and his interviews and provide detailed citations, right? So I could be sure it wasn't making stuff up. And this is what it said I said. Nicholas F. Miatis describes the Chinese Communist Party's political warfare as a whole of society, intelligence-driven campaign that blends espionage, covert influence, technology acquisition, and psychological operations to shape foreign decision-making in favor of Beijing. Pretty good. Actually, probably better than I could have said it. Very good. And I did say it, apparently. The whole of concept being a whole of society intelligence and political warfare approach. Whole of society mobilization, as Cheryl pointed out, and how the CCP uses tens, if not hundreds of thousands of actors worldwide, intelligence officers, diplomats, academics, students, diaspora organizations, all to advance party objectives. Centralized planning, distributed activity globally. Party-state fusion. There's no clear boundary between state, party, and ostensibly private entities. All can be tasked to support political warfare, including information operations, narrative shaping, and pressure on foreign elites. All this is integrated with national strategy. Political warfare from the CCP is not ad hoc. It's embedded long-term strategy designed to secure regime survival, expand comprehensive national power, and weaken adversaries' cohesion and will. Now, just think about CCP's intentions for the moment and the fact that they have a long-term strategy. And on the other side of this equation, let's just take the United States for a start. We have the United States, and I want you to remember this, which is the most powerful nation in the world, the last remaining superpower. Doesn't matter, pick a measure. Military, economy, GDP, agricultural production, technology under base. It's still the most powerful nation in the world. And yet we don't act it. We don't leverage it. Everything you have heard, other than this panel, which has introduced the concept of offensive behavior, but everything you're likely to hear from policymakers is all defensive in nature. Oh, let's go build more cyber defenses. Let's have a coordinated response between cyber actors and, our government, CISA, and companies. Great idea. Build more cyber defenses. Who pays for that? Well, if you're a company, the consumer is going to pay for it. And if you're the government, the taxpayer is going to pay for it. There is no incentive in anything we do for the CCP to stop its actions. We provide no incentive. In fact, we encourage it. Honestly, I think we're going to lose this one if we don't change. It really is. If you're in Beijing, as was pointed out on the panel earlier, AI is easy and it's making it easier. What's the incentive to stop? What, the fact that we're putting up more defenses? It's not a way to do policy. So we need to kind of look at the CCP's strategic objectives, which I frame them as protect regime survival and the CCP monopolies on power, secure economic and technological advantages over rivals, shape global norms to be more accommodating of an authoritarian governance. In the case of the CCP, it's a digital authoritarian regime. Erode adversaries' social cohesion, trust in institutions, and the ability to resist coercion. These are China's objectives. These are the CCP's objectives. What are the U.S. objectives? What is the U.S. strategy? What is the U.S. strategy with Taiwan for dealing with these? I defy anyone to give me an answer, right? Because I've said that to senior U.S. policy officials, and I've said that asked that to members of Congress, and you get a deer in the headlights because nobody knows. Nobody's thought of developing a strategy. Don't you think we need one? We clearly know what China is, right? They've said it publicly. To reascend to our position at the top, our rightful position at the top of the world. Those are Xi Jinping's words. Not to climb to reascend. Believing we were always on the top of the world, and that's what Xi Jinping is giving us the China dream. He's got a strategy, a long-term one. We keep fighting battles, but we're not addressing the war. And I'll call it a political warfare that's ongoing. So it doesn't matter how many people the FBI arrests for economic espionage, right? They get 2 cases a day, they say. 2 cases a day times 365, 730 cases a year, each one taking months to resolve. There are thousands of cases in the rears. I just did a quick scan of my database and looked at foreign agents registration, political influence operations. Linda Sung, currently on trial. Russell Lowe, who used to work for Dianne Feinstein, Senator Dianne Feinstein. Christine Fang, a favorite, who was dating Eric Swalwell, Congressman Swalwell. Lin Kuei-an, NYPD Liaison Unit Commissioner, who was fired from the job for illegal fundraising and to support candidates. Mike's son and Eileen Wong, we just heard about, in Arcadia, California. She was the mayor of Arcadia, ran a propaganda site, for the CCP earlier on, and then were raising funds explicitly with the purpose of attacking Falun Gong. Right? And it goes on. Cindy Yang, who was a fundraiser and selling political influence, and she was the vice president of the China Council for the Promotion of Peaceful National Reunification, a United Front Work Department. It's just dozens of cases that I have of political influence and attacking the diaspora overseas. What is the fundamental number one responsibility of any nation state? Protecting its people, right? If you cannot protect your people, say this to members of Congress, if you can't protect your people, what good are you? It's just the foremost responsibility. And yet we have people physically under attack in this country. We have people cyber attacked. The Ministry of Public Security First Bureau, their political bureau, basically, their first bureau, they run in the order of, Facebook alone kicks off 50,000 of the websites per year that they set up. 50,000 a year, and that's Facebook, not even including what's on X. Right? Absolutely rampant on this. So, discussed a little on what they do, discussed a little on what their objectives are, and what political warfare is in the CCP eyes. Discuss what we're not doing or doing incorrectly. So what can we do? And how does the U.S. work with Taiwan to do that? I gave a presentation once at some organization in Washington, D.C., the Cosmos Club, actually, and someone who was in the crowd said to me, the President Trump cut CISA back. And, that's the problem. We're dealing with Chinese economic espionage and their attack against, Volt Typhoon, Salt Typhoon, their attack against critical infrastructure. And it dawned on me, I said, you're retired from CISA, yes? He said, yes. The problem is our thinking. We're linear thinkers, right? They attack from cyber, we add money to that. Or we attack back in cyber. Tell you what, next time we find Volt Typhoon or Salt Typhoon, put a carrier through the Taiwan Straits. So you know what? We're going to put a couple of carrier battle groups and sail them slowly through the Taiwan Straits. Let's see Xi Jinping hold on to power when everyone starts screaming about this an American carrier offshore. Next time they start doing exercises outside of Taiwan, let's go do exercises on the east coast of Taiwan. Oh, you still want to do that? Tell you what, you want to do cyber attacks against us and steal our treasury? Not a problem. We're going to kick state-owned enterprises off the U.S. stock exchange. That's it. You get no more. 40% of China's GDP. They say it's half that of the U.S. 40% is investment, investment going into it. It's a false figure. It's like a third of that. And you know where that investment comes from? That all comes from us. That comes from everyone from the outside. So tell you what, you want to go attack cyber? Not a problem. We'll kick you off the U.S. stock exchange and ask the Brits to do the same thing and ask Japan to do the same thing on the Nikkei exchange. You want to steal from us, from our research institutions? Not a problem. You'll never publish anything in the West again. You'll never travel to the West. See how you do locked up inside China. Oh, you want to fly on a carrier? Now, same thing that we do with terrorism or suspected terrorists. You don't get on a carrier, on an air carrier anywhere. We, again, go back to the first statement. The U.S. is the most powerful nation in the world. And we don't have to play, we don't have to give a reason. We can give China the same reasons for our actions that they give us. No, and we're not going to address it. What do you mean you're going to build something in the South China Sea? Well, we don't like your attitude, which is what Xi Jinping said to Biden when President Biden brought up fentanyl. We're not going to change until America's attitude doesn't change. So guess what? Next time they run exercises by Taiwan, we start building in the South China Sea. And they say, you can't do that. Yeah, actually we can. The United Nations says we can. You haven't done any, they say it's not yours, so we're going to do it. And we're not going to stop until your attitude changes, period. You have no evidence. We don't need evidence. We're a sovereign nation. Any evidence we have, we'll keep to ourselves. So, things aren't going to change until the U.S. starts acting like the global power that it is, starts standing up for itself and starts exercising itself globally. And we need to treat China and the CCP in the same way they are treating the world. Nothing's going to happen until you hold at risk that which they value. And in the case of the CCP, it's power. Okay, so until we collectively do something that affects their hold or that threatens their hold on power, there's no reason for them to stop. There's no incentive for them to stop. Well, we're going to say it's the sense of the Congress. We're going to draw up a congressional resolution. Is that the answer? Shake our fingers at them? What? Nothing and keep this in mind. I've been following this for over 40 years, particularly on Chinese espionage. Nothing we have done to date works. Keep that in mind. Stop reinforcing failure. We need to change policy direction. Strategy, comprehensive strategy. Hold at risk what the CCP holds dearly and be effective in our execution of it. And it needs to survive different presidencies. That needs to come from the Congress. That needs to come in law from the Congress and bind future presidencies to that type of behavior. Because someone else will get in, they'll do things differently. Every 4 years, we run the risk of that changing. We need law. Okay. Thank you. That's about all I have. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much. I'm so glad that all four of our panelists discussed offensive, because I think that's really the main theme today. So for now, we'll do a round of questions. Before I do my questions, is there anybody in the audience that want to ask a question? Yes, please go up to the mic. And please just state your name and who you're addressing the question to, please.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for a fantastic presentation and panel discussion. My name is Hongbin Ding. I have one question about the organization of this beast or enterprise of United Front or political warfare of PRC. So based on your research, actually, this question is not to any one of you, it's for all of you. Based on your research, if we view United Front as an organization, as an enterprise, then what is this? It seems that it's very good at doing a lot of things. But the core of my question is, what is this beast is not good at? Or do we know anything about its weakness at this point based on your research at all? Thank you.
Cheryl, do you want to answer?
Honestly, I think because the way they can operate like normal organizations, just like a nonprofit. I'm seeing like all the benefit that they have instead of the weaknesses. I think it's very hard.
I'll jump on it. You know what? Their weakness is security. Their weakness is what I would call Operation Security. Because, look, that type of coercion has been going on. And I lived in Chinatown here in D.C. in the 1980s, right? And even then, we all knew it was happening. So it's been going on forever. The only difference is the government didn't care. The U.S. government never cared. So it's and it's actually just from Safeguard Defenders report that came out about the police stations, the police stations. That's the only thing that look at all the arrests and stuff. It's all post that. So that's the only thing that's here. But what you do find is that they're pretty terrible in their Operation Security. So, if they're vulnerable, and that only makes them vulnerable at a lower level, operatives, it is there.
Go ahead, Nia.
Actually, yeah. Now, I thought of one. So I think one of the it is their benefit. At the same time, it's also their weaknesses, which is the people that they are using right now. So the individuals that they try to collaborate with, where they currently work closely with the CCP and try to do whatever the party asks them to. At the same time, they are also just, individuals living abroad. So I think as whether it's the Taiwanese government or the U.S. government, I think for democratic societies, we should also do the same. When the Chinese Communist Party is trying to win these people's hearts and minds, we should do the same, because at the same time, there are also people that want to live a good life. That's why maybe a lot of times initially, that's why they're here. I think the people that is consisting of these organizations is, although the party is using them at the moment, but at the same time, they are also the so-called weaknesses that democratic societies should try to, exploit.
Just jump in, David. Just succinctly, United Front has two major weaknesses. First, it's playing a bad hand because it's trying to defend, in essence, communism and to advance that system. Second weakness is it plays on ignorance. And so the faster, the better, the more effectively we learn about its strategy, its tactics, and fundamentally the ideology that's driving it, we'd be able to drive a stake through the heart of the United Front, whether it's the work department or obviously working through non-official front organizations, and thereby drive a stake through the heart of the CCP.
Thank you.
Actually, can I just jump on one thing? You know what? There is a level of ignorance also in the people who are in those organizations, those nonprofits in the United States, and student groups, for example, and such. They don't know that literally, you responding to Beijing's tasking like this is against U.S. law. If they knew that, I think a lot of them would go, whoa, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And that we consider that breaking the law, and it's a 5-year penalty, that type of thing. In fact, I think I had about 800 I'm going to get 800 letters together and just send it to the boards on that. By the way, did you know that? Just letting you know that acting on behalf of the Beijing government, secrecy is breaking U.S. law. So I think Beijing would lose a lot of support that way, because people would be like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I had no idea.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom McDevitt, I serve as chairman of the Washington Times, just got back from Taiwan, and I think this last panel is one of the most inspiring panels I've heard in a long time. And the reason is because you're talking about going on the offensive. In that space, what is the panel's view of ideological warfare? In other words, especially in the 250th anniversary of America, comparing and contrasting the American first principle model with CCP thought, Xi Jinping thought, socialism with Chinese characteristics. Also, one other point I'd like to make is that the Washington Times is eager to collaborate, very impressed with this conference and the setup. We just published a special section here, which is available, Why Taiwan Matters Now More Than Ever, and 32 pages, fabulous number of op-eds. We want to do this every month. So I think a whole-of-society approach is definitely possible, especially incorporating the private sector, the civil society, faith groups like, as many of you know. So anyway, the question is the potential of striking at the heart of the ideological basis of the CCP, just like during the Soviet Union. Thanks so much.
Would one of you like to answer that question? How ideological strategies compare and contrast America 250 versus Xi Jinping thoughts?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. It's an extremely important one. The contrast couldn't be starker. We really have, with the CCP, the remnant again of a failed ideology, the ideology of communism put in place by Soviet imperialism. As I stated, this is an ideology that sees people as collectives, right? That has conducted the utmost horrors against its own population, against other people around the world, in contrast to the United States, which is the embodiment of individual liberty, the freedoms that we hold dear and that have been so successful. at making the United States. Nick talked about us, of course, as a superpower. There's no doubt that we are in every respect, the economic, the military, but it must be appreciated as well, the political, too. The ideology that we have is an ideology that attracts people, that has allowed individuals to fulfill their lives as no other country has around the world. So it's a painful irony that although we're the best at it, again, as Nick suggested, we're not using it, right? We're not using all of the mechanisms that we should. And I'd encourage individuals to do so. Final point would be President Trump is beginning to move in that direction, I think, with his attention to communism that he's stated since his address at the Family and Faith Coalition on June 26th. And then, of course, the address at Mount Rushmore and on Independence Day, as well as his truths. So thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, guys. Any other questions before I ask my questions? Yeah, go ahead, please. Just up to the mic there.
Thank you very much for that wonderful conference. It was very insightful to hear your different perspectives. My name is Jared Jeter from New Lines Institute. I'm a Taiwan scholar. I recently just returned from Taiwan after 3 years. I did my master's there. And I wanted to ask Dr. Thayer in particular about your perception and your opinion on the nomenclature of how we define China's ideology and how it relates to our own understanding. And the reason why I ask is because after having lived in Taiwan, they have a sort of a welfare state and communal social structure that our current administration itself tends to define as communism, the type of thing that the Taiwanese social structure tends to advocate for, strong family bonds, universal types of like healthcare and education rights. These are things that our current president defines as communism itself. And given that China operates on a sort of oligarchic Bolshevik dictatorship and its economy tends to operate on a sort of mandated state capitalism, I'm wondering if in your perception, if the term communism needs to be better filtered or better refined and defined when talking about these type of things so that the American audience can understand what we're actually talking about as opposed to what either the Chinese or American administrations are talking about, which tend to be different things.
Certainly, and absolutely. We do need to have clarity in definitions with respect to that. I'm reluctant to use communism as a terminology. I prefer Leninism when we understand what Lenin generated and what Bolshevik thought generated. Then we're able to understand the CCP extremely well, and we're able to understand the differences between the tyranny of the CCP and the freedoms that we have in the United States and the need to defend that. And so from that point of view, we're going to be able to recognize that when we see that stark differences, it's not an amorphous communism, it's the thought of Lenin and the Bolsheviks and how that disseminated. We're able to see, I think, with greater clarity, the differences between the two systems. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Janice Choi. My question is, George Hong works for the United Front, and his daughter, Nicole Hong, is a current journalist for New York Times, and she co-authored more than 10 articles attacking Shenyang performing arts, and without disclosing the ties. And not only the ties with her father, but also the ties of the subject that she reported that have a direct link to the Beijing Dance Academy. And then when Nicole Hong was at Wall Street Journal, she co-authored about 10 articles that lead to, Trump's the hush money and then eventually litigation. So I would like to hear from you, how could we go a step further to unmask, the infiltration of United Front activities on American soil, which may be directly or indirectly, and maybe in multiple forms, from legal affairs to using media as a lawfare?
Nick, you want to take that?
Oh, there are many dimensions to what you're suggesting. And take, for example, the physical attacks that we've seen against Falun Gong and slashing tires and, threats, phone call threats. In U.S. definitions, that's terrorism, right? Treat it like it's terrorism for a start. So make it known that you're treating it like terrorism. The first time you arrest someone for, slashing tires or for threatening people and threatening to put a bomb, first time you arrest them for terroristic threats, that's going to send a message. Lots of people are going to go, I'm not picking up that phone. I don't care what Beijing wants. I'm not picking up that phone. So again, some of this, and I love to get this woven into cohesive strategy, but some of this is on the part of the government caring enough to, and, the victims working with the government closely enough, right, to be able to provide the data so that we can move this to getting arrests. So it's a little bit of coordination that has to come on both sides, and then the U.S. government has to push for that type of, for those things. And it really, I think it'll just take the first few cases before you start to impact, you have a dramatically different impact on the people willing to do that sort of thing.
All right. I have a question for Dr. Liu. This is a piece of news I just recently read, and this influencer appears on Instagram a lot. It's a Chinese influencer named Potato, and she's this girl that does, very relaxed comedy, social media content. But in Taiwan, it's getting a lot of young people to, buy into her stuff. She's not political at all. So I see that in Taiwan, it seems like there's a lot of these seemingly benign influencers coming from mainland China, but it's actually very attractive to the Taiwanese young people. Have you seen anything like, what is the push behind that, or what is the campaign behind it from mainland China?
Okay, so I would say that it's the strategy that CCP is using, like KOL with daily contents, like in the beginning they are just talking about the entertainment or the beauty or the travel, but at some key points they will start to talk about some political message. And same thing happened in our research in the temples. So in the beginning, they are just like a pure religion exchange. But when they exchange more opinions, the more political message is infiltrated into their daily conversation. So they are very old strategy, but still useful. So we need to raise people's awareness that, okay, those are not neutral contents. And if we can find more evidence to prove that there are some financial ties and they are sponsored by CCP, then I think they can build people's resistance to those content.
Just to follow up, what would be your suggestion for the American lawmakers or members in the government? Because here, people are very resistant to government-funded stuff, right? If you say this came from the official government, to label something as something, then makes people think that this is clearly, it's political, it's one-sided. But it seems in Taiwan that, there are things, especially government responses to disinformation, it's accepted by the general public as authoritative. What would be your suggestion for something that could apply to campaigns happening on U.S. soil?
I would say that although I'm the Whole Society Resilience Committee member, I don't represent the government. I represent the civil society. So I told my students to create more interesting contents to replace those negative contents. And so it should be initiated by civil society and to tell our own narratives. So CCP is using whole of society approach to destroy our democracy, but democratic society is also using whole of society approach to defend ourselves. But our whole of society approach is based on individual. the starting point is individual rights, individual interests. I would say that. So the YouTube has a very good policy. So if they found the channel is sponsored by government, it will put a sign, a signal. And so usually you can see some channels said, okay, it is sponsored by CCP. I think that's very good. Yeah.
I have a joint question for Cheryl and Nick. So we know, I believe for a while now that we know of these United Front organizations, even possibly other CCP-linked affiliated organizations. What's been the response from governments, agencies like the FBI are they building these cases for some sort of a long-term, catch them all at once kind of thing, or is there not anything going on to resolve that in that space?
No, I think we've talked to, from my understanding, I think there are people within the FBI that are like tracking the cases and that have been like have really good understanding of the CCP's United Front's work. But at the same time, because of the things like what I mentioned, the things that they do, the relationship building activities, like all the way until they really activate the individual or the network to like say do espionage or to like do like some type of like illicit technology transfer, they won't be able to charge them. And that is currently like a big issue based on the law. So that's my current understanding.
Yeah, I mean, the FBI is just not that organized. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. It's a bureaucracy like any other. In fact, they say the B in FBI stands for bureaucracy. But they're not led with a strategic direction that this is what we're going to do, guys. They just don't, because I've spoken to agents and they said, well, why don't you do this, this, this? And they're just doing cases. As far as they're concerned, it's an issue of cases. What's in my area? Well, do you know of anything in our area, Nick, that we should be looking at? Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is if you don't affect this at a strategic level, it's just taking up your time. So that's the problem set that we sit on.
One of our panelists in the afternoon, I don't know if General Stowell is here, but he once mentioned to me how there needs to be the counter disinformation campaign against China where you take what to discredit them. Because we've been talking a lot about the offense and also ideological stuff. Dr. Thayer, is there any chance of the United States ever forming something like, quote unquote, a propaganda department or a discredit sort of apparatus against communist China? Or would there be anything in the works that could look something like that?
Well, certainly, David, we did this in the past very effectively. In our wars that we fought, we did that throughout our wars, beginning with the British, World War I, World War II, and the Cold War. We did it supremely effectively because it was organized, as Nick has stressed, right? This has to be organized. I don't know that it needs to be done by the government, State Department, of course, intelligence community, Department of War involvement. I think it's best done privately. I think it's best done by private actors who are able to underscore the strengths of American society, of our freedoms, of our liberty, and draw that stark contrast to the tyranny of the Chinese Communist Party.
David, if I could, yeah. So, and I'm not sure we even need to do that and get into that. That intelligence community report that's supposed to talk about Xi Jinping's finances, it wasn't very in-depth last time. If they make it extraordinarily in-depth, you know what? Have the embassy deliver it to Xi Jinping and say, you put out one more piece of propaganda and we release this publicly, period. And do that with all the members of the Politburo. That's all you have to do. And, get them to stop. Hold what they hold dearly, hold that at risk.
Thank you very much for our panelists today for their amazing insight into this topic. And thank you guys for listening in.
Thank you, David. Thank you for our panelists. And thanks for our audience. Really good question from here. Now, it's lunchtime. The lunchbox is served in the foyer on the desk, so everyone take one bag. We will be back at 12:40 sharp. There's two rooms in the foyer, 268, 217. There's chairs there, and you probably can grab your lunch box and you can sit in that room. So in the afternoon, the session will start 12:40. 我们今天的 session 就到这儿了。每个朋友，我们为你准备了午餐的盒子在外面，在就是刚才你们进来的地方。12:40我们会回到这儿，所以请大家不要迟到。Thank you and see you later. No food and drink is allowed in this auditorium. It's a strict rule in the office.